Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rick Walker with Maverick News.
Hey, everybody. It's Brendan Kennedy with Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. It's great to be here. How's everybody?
I'm okay, and let's see. Let's just check the comments. And yeah, everybody's out there. So it looks like we're in business again, and lots of stuff to share with you tonight. We have truckers regrouping and new protests, more protests. Protesters are back in many cities today. We have insight, analysis, live coverage of what's going on in Ukraine and the war there, and more. What are we starting with tonight, Brendan? I know that there were things going on in Ottawa, Toronto, and in Sarnia, and I think other cities as well. But
yeah, all of southwestern Ontario in Canada has been a hub of protest and continuing the same spirit, really, that the Canadian truckers have brought to the capital of Canada. And people have said, like, you know, we have lost, but there's so much that we have won. And I think I was absolutely correct in saying previously that this is something that will inspire a whole new generation of people who are going to be involved in politics and that sort of thing. And hopefully we get a whole bunch of people into politics that aren't going to vote for people to have to wear masks or mandate vaccines or those whole other range of issues.
So you were, well, I know that Carla Olson was down at a protest today in Sarnia.
That's
and
right.
She was one of the people actually asked to speak because when she was down there, as you know, Carla is a nurse, and she lost her job because she would not get the needle. So today in Sarnia, she was invited to speak and share her story. So why don't we start with what happened down there in Sarnia? Why don't we start with her speech and share that with the folks at home, because she has been our eyes and ears on the ground in Ottawa, and she was our eyes and ears on the ground in Sarnia today, and she was actually asked to share her story. So why don't we start with that? I'll cue that up.
Oh, I have it ready to go.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have it queued up to her?
Yeah, hold up. Just need to do a couple of buttons away, and we're going to be there. There it is.
Okay.
So, that's me eating a hot dog, by the way. You can't tell with my winter gear on.
Okay, so let's let it roll. Let's hear what Carla had to say at this protest
Very
in Sarnia,
special woman.
Anti-mandate.
Her name is Carla
protest.
Olson. She is, she's a bit of a rock star here in Sarnia now. All right, Carla Olson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Carla Olson, and I am Canadian. And so are you, and you, and you, and everyone. We are Canadians. We are not racist. We are not misogynistic. We are not Nazi. And we are not a part of a fringe minority with unacceptable views. I'll tell you what I am. I am a nurse. I was a clinical instructor who taught nursing students. I worked at Lambton College and Blue Water Health. I lost my job at Lambton College in September. I lost my job at Blue Water Health on November 4th. I lost it because our government came out with mandates. I stand for medical freedom. I stand for the standards of practice, and under those standards of practice, we nurses need to follow them. And it is the patient's right to informed consent, the patient's right to refuse. Both of those organizations decided that I was their patient. They didn't give me informed consent. I did not have the right to refuse. So, together, when those mandates came down at Blue Water Health, there were over 300 healthcare workers that stood for medical freedom. They didn't want to participate in this medical procedure. So, when the mandates came down, it became about vaccinate or terminate. And together, we tried to figure out a way that we could continue, that we could fight against this. We lost the fight. And the coercion was great. So in the end, on November 1st, only 18 of us were standing. And you know, I don't blame those
Sarnia.
that decided to make a different decision than I did. The simple thing is, they were coerced. They had to choose between feeding themselves, their family, and or possibly keeping their homes, or working and doing what they needed to do to support their family. There were single moms, there were fathers, there were single people, and it was great. I mean, it was always discussed at work. So, in the end, it was just the 18. And you know, I'm still in contact with many of them, and their words were never, "I'm so glad I did this, I changed my mind, it was the right thing." What I hear from them is some have big regrets, some of them feel guilty, they feel less than. I've had a couple tell me that they actually feel medically raped. Yeah, and so, you know, I want to speak to those nurses, those healthcare workers. Don't feel guilty. This government put you into that corner, and today we're standing together, unified, to fight against these mandates so that it doesn't happen to anyone else. When I lost my job, it was a job that I loved. It was a career, something that I loved, a job that I was proud to do every day. And when I made that decision, it was one of the most difficult decisions, but I knew that it was bigger than a vaccine. This mandate meant a lot more to me, to my children, and to my grandchildren. So I stood. And when the dust settled and my job was over, I went into a very, very dark place. I sat in my home, in my garage actually, because it's heated, and I was paralyzed. I couldn't leave that couch. I couldn't leave anywhere. Scrolling Facebook, looking for answers, researching everywhere that I could, and looking for others who felt the same way that I did. Things happened in those days that I sat there. I grew very lonely. I felt alone. Although most of the members in my household sat on the same side of this as I did, I still lost relationships. Some were wounded, some are gone as far as friendships go. There is division in my family, and that's tough, right? Because as family, we always stick together. So moving forward onto that, I continued on and tried to find hope. And near the end of January 27th, Canadian truckers took the stand that I had only hoped would happen. Right? And on that day when they began to travel, I think some traveled actually before that, and on that day when they began to travel, I could feel hope. I thought, oh my goodness, if they're willing to stand in solidarity, unified, we could win this. And I really truly believe if the healthcare workers would have all stood together, we could have won it too. But it doesn't matter who did it or who was used. The thing that matters is that they stood in solidarity. So as I traveled to Ottawa, I had a pull. I needed to get out of where I was at. And I felt the Lord actually tell me, you know what, go. So I talked to my husband and we went. So on the 27th of January, we got in our Volkswagen Passat decorated with some words and some flags, and we followed that convoy from Sarnia. And I have to tell you, not only was I hopeful when I knew that the truckers were going to stand because I knew that they had a brotherhood, but when we...
Oops, we've lost that feed. We'll have to come back to it later, Brendan. We should maybe move on to some other things here. Your microphone is muted.
Oh, okay. What was wrong with it?
Just dumped out of it. I don't know what it is. We'll have to come back to it.
Okay.
Let's move on to some other stuff. What else is going on with the convoy stuff today? I know that there was some of the trucks. We have an update on what's going on with the trucks in Ottawa that have been confiscated. So let's... I'm going to find that for you here, folks. Just bear with me for one moment. I'm sorry about those technical problems, but here's a report on what's going on with those.
Is 12:30. 12:30 Ontario. Hey everybody, it's Jackpot again. It is what time is it? It's 11:30 Saskatchewan time. Means it is 12:30. 12:30 Ontario time. Have a quick update. If you had a vehicle that was on Wellington and it was impounded, you can pick it up today. Good news. If it has an Ontario plate, you can drive it out. Bad news. If it has an out-of-province plate, you have until 1 o'clock to contact the Ministry of Transportation and get a permit to move it today. Otherwise, you have to go get it with a tow truck. The vehicles that are being released are located at 3201 Conroy Road, which is the town's snow dump. It's 3201 Conroy Road at the town snow dump. So if you have out-of-province plates and you want your vehicle from Wellington back, you need a day permit to get it out of there because your plates have been canceled because our government is wonderful. If you have Ontario plates, you can get it, no problems. So you have until 1 o'clock to get those permits if you need permits. So that's good news and bad news. Thank you.
He didn't look too comfortable on the camera there at the end.
No, I mean, why would he?
Yeah.
That's such terrible news. Like, this is the bureaucracy of the government screwing with people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the hell they're expecting people to do with that. Like,
hang on a second here.
These mountain curves and
Sorry, Brendan, are you there? I'm having a lot of technical problems here. Hang on.
yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I've got other audio playing in my head. I'm sorry. Just a moment. Just go ahead and make your comment about the trucks being confiscated.
Well, they're not giving them a whole lot of time to act on that, and I think that's reasonably unfair how they're behaving with that. I don't think that that's an adequate enough time to do that. And if you have a big rig and you need to tow it out, that is a hell of a lot of expense you have to pay in order to get your vehicle out of there if the government is going to let you drive it out of there. And I would wager any money that anybody who has one of those vehicles, it's in a police database, and police are going to be checking that out. Like, there's license plate scanners and everything like that the police have. They'll be looking at that. They won't take lightly on it.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is still a bit of a mess, and I know that today Pat King, who is being portrayed as one of the organizers of the convoy in Ottawa, his bail was denied because there was some talk of weapons issues that were raised in court as his case was brought up today. So, or at least that was the report today. I should clarify that. So, Pat King, bail denied was the last word that we received. And Tamara Litch also still remains in custody. So the authorities are holding essentially political prisoners on charges like counseling to commit mischief. And well, it looked like Pat King was going to be released. It's now has not been released. So he's still in custody.
Now, here's time for the irony, folks, that the man who had hit somebody at the Manitoba Freedom Convoy protest, he was granted bail on February 7th. So David Alexander Zegarak released from custody on Saturday, February 7th on a promise to pay $10,000. He has 11 charges in connection with a hit and run at the Manitoba legislature Friday evening that injured 4 people. That is extremely disturbing that he could sit there and promise to not run anybody over with his car again.
To clarify, because that wasn't clear, you're talking about a person who ran over convoy supporters, protesters and where was the location again?
In Manitoba.
And that was sort of in the middle of the whole thing with the convoys. And that was about when was that? A week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago?
That was quite a while ago. If he was released on bail on the 7th of February.
Right. So it was near the beginning of the whole thing.
It was near the beginning of the convoys, and he went to the protest, and he had run over, he had injured 4 people. So, I mean, that's not something to be taken lightly, that this person he commits an egregious act of violence where somebody could be killed.
Yeah.
And he's allowed to go on bail. Like, his head is not on straight. So what, did he just tell the judge, I promise I won't run anybody over? Does that also involve giving him his vehicle back?
No, there were a number of conditions. So, before we make any comments on that, let's please be accurate. And if you're going to talk about it, let's find out exactly what the conditions of his release were.
He's not allowed to enter the city of Winnipeg except for court purposes or a medical emergency. He is also required to remain under an absolute curfew in his Headingley area home and is only allowed to leave the home during the curfew in a medical emergency involving himself or an immediate family member or when attending court.
Mm-hmm.
Bar him from sitting in the driver's seat of a vehicle, owning or possessing any weapon or firearm.
Okay. And lots of other protests going on around. We're going to have some information coming out of Ottawa and the Ottawa area here tonight. And there was also a sizable demonstration in Toronto. And here's some footage from there. So again, this was the scene in Toronto today. Lots of protesters down there. So the movement is obviously still alive and growing in spite of the crackdown from the authorities in Ottawa.
Battery died. I got to get it plugged in here for me. I don't know what happened. It was at 80% and then just white.
And it's happening in multiple cities. Now in Sarnia today, Brendan, as you were down there looking at everything going on, the protest was entirely lawful, entirely peaceful, right? And
absolutely.
And what exactly transpired? There was a convoy or a cruise of some kind that took place through the town?
Yeah, there was a convoy that rolled through all around the city, starting at the Blue Water Bridge, which is the border point between Sarnia, Ontario, and the United States of America. So there was a huge convoy that was rolling around with various different types of vehicles and trucks that were elaborately decorated. There was probably in attendance about 400 or so people at the city downtown office. So that was pretty exciting. There was free food there. There was music. It was something to be seen. And for the most part, people driving by were pretty well behaved. There was usually the only thing that I seen was unlawful was there was an angry guy who was holding up traffic. But he was gotten rid of pretty quick. Like, he had to move on pretty quick. The police were on scene and they did watch everything and they did keep everything very civil. There was no problems in that regard. There was lots of people who shared their stories that have been ongoing throughout the pandemic and that sort of thing. The people are not forgetting what happened in Ottawa, so there's that spirit there. And all of the flags that were there, absolutely incredible. I could not believe all of the flags.
And this footage in Toronto, more flags here, more patriotism, obviously love of country, and people pushing because they want an end to the medical mandates, right? Now, in Sarnia, there was talk of a counter-protest possibly materializing. Did you see that or hear about it? Did that happen?
The only thing I'd seen was the incident with the truck that was blocking traffic to argue with a protester. And then that person moved on after holding up traffic to a point. But then across the street, there was two people who had Pray for Ukraine signs or something like that. And they stood by themselves across the street. So I don't know what the story is with that. But no, I wouldn't classify any of that as counter-protesting, though.
Okay. Yeah, there was some talk of them possibly planning to try to block that convoy through town, but the organizers contacted police in advance and told them what they were going to do, and the intention was not really to disrupt traffic or cause any problems or delays. It was just to raise awareness, so it was just people driving through town, right? And
Yep.
I guess there was no disruption, so the counter protest from what you saw, just never really took hold or never happened.
Yeah, there was no trouble. It was a really peaceful day. Everybody was well behaved. There was a point where some speaker said, "Look over to the next person beside you and give them a hug," and everybody basically did that. Like, it was very peaceful. It was very, very well put together. There was police involvement and community involvement. Like, what's more to say other than, like, they threw an excellent little event at City Hall. And it's just a good reflection that people are really sick of what's going on. And no matter, like, the distractions in the world, people are really focused on this issue. For that many people to show up at the City Hall in Sarnia, Ontario, and this many people to show up in Toronto, and in Ottawa, and in Chatham.
Yeah, Patty McCarthy says you are right. Shows Ukraine and Russia as a cover-up for everything that is going on. It is a distraction to get us away from really what is happening behind the scenes. I think that's probably partly true.
I had an epiphany about that. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. Do you remember in 2020, before we had the coronavirus came to North America and started becoming, like, big news? So, do you remember at that time in Canada, we had the Wet'suwet'en blockades. So there was First Nations individuals or protesters who were blocking main railways in Canada, all across the country, and because they didn't want pipelines to be implanted. There was major protests happening in Hong Kong, and there was all kinds of things going on with that. But as soon as coronavirus came, all that went away overnight. It was all done. But now we have a situation, and it seems like the press is trying to just roll with Ukraine and trying to go with that, but this is not to be forgotten here. That we still have a battle to be fought. There's still things in Canada that need to be fixed.
So this was the scene in Toronto today.
They come into Toronto for a while, and usually you get a couple people stop on the street. They'll cheer you on or they give you the figure, but the streets are packed here with
So are you surprised at the size of the crowds we're seeing this weekend, Brendan? Or,
yeah, very much so. It's very, very positive that many people would come together. Now, I am familiar with these protests in Sarnia, Ontario, and they used to barely be able to garner 10 people to go to them, and now there's several hundred people going to them.
Yeah. And, of course, we've got the People's Convoy rolling across the USA. And that's continuing tonight as well.
And they'll be set to arrive in Washington next Saturday.
So we're going to get you a live feed to show you what's going on with the People's Convoy too. But before we do that, let's shift gears here a little bit. And I've got so many tabs open. So that's Toronto, but let's go to Kiev and talk just a little bit about what is going on in Ukraine tonight, because this is also top of mind for people and a major concern. So we know that the conflict there continues, and this is live footage, live feed from Ukraine. And because it is a war situation, it's not entirely easy to keep tabs on everything going on. But we know that there was a warship that attacked a station right on the shore, and that was live streamed while that happened. And tragically, that there were some people killed there. We've seen the death toll climb. The entire situation there is a tragedy. And I think that maybe tonight I'd like to clarify some of the things that I was talking about last night after reviewing some of the comments that people were making even after the fact, as people watched the repeat broadcast from last night. There were a lot of comments that came in, and it's a complicated issue. And I would never say that I'm an expert in the issues surrounding Ukraine, because it's not something that I follow every day and haven't been following it every day. But some of the stuff is just smack dab right in front of your face, and it's very blatant and obvious what some of the issues are surrounding it. And as I said, I don't think this is a conflict that really needed to happen. I think this is the result of bungled U.S. foreign policy and NATO foreign policy. And I don't want to sound like an apologist for Vladimir Putin. I don't think there really are many, if any, good guys in this story. I think there are just a lot of bad guys. And I think that the average person, the average Ukrainian citizen is paying for this, in some cases paying the ultimate price. And I think people around the world, including Canadian citizens and U.S. citizens, are going to pay for all of this in higher prices, in a more unstable world. And I'm very, very worried about it because I think this whole thing could escalate. And to clarify what I was, from my position on this, it's my view that because NATO has been pushing aggressively to make Ukraine a NATO member, and Putin has repeatedly warned them that he can't allow it, that they've sort of backed him into a corner. And that's one of the major issues that has led to this. But the other thing that has facilitated this conflict is that the United States, especially NATO in general, they're in a weakened state, and they truly are impotent. And they've been lying about a lot of this. And it's not just that they're in a weakened state militarily, they're in a weakened state economically. And policies like energy policy are failing us right now. And it's something that has been blatantly obvious for years. And it's something that even Donald Trump tried to address when he was president, like him or not, and like what he has to say or not. He was right about this. Europe is far too dependent on Russian oil. The United States, even now, buys oil from Russia. So too does Canada, to the tune of about $400 million a year. And so when our weak prime minister stands up and virtue signals to the world and to his own people by imposing sanctions, it's really just a facade. I can pretty much guarantee Vladimir Putin doesn't give a monkey's fart about Justin Trudeau's sanctions. They're completely ineffective. And you don't see Trudeau sanctioning the import of Russian oil. And why are we importing Russian oil? Why does the United States have to import Russian oil? Why is Europe so dependent on Russian oil? It's because we've pulled back on the production of oil domestically. Under Trump, the United States was energy independent and was actually exporting oil. Canada is an energy-rich country, but we leave ours in the ground and buy it from Russia and Iran. These policies make no sense. The oil is going to be produced anyway. And right now, the United States,
Drinking
NATO,
water before
Canada,
bed reverses diabetes in just 4 weeks. People are eliminating their type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes by adding
Here,
this
let me
one
just get rid of
ingredient
that
to their
audio.
glass of water before bed. That's what Alison, a 49-year-old mother, was able to do using this new diabetes program that only 3% of people even know about.
Oh, that was annoying.
Sorry about that, folks. So it's ridiculous, is really what it is. Where you cannot get a good deal, you can't leverage anything, you can't negotiate from a position of weakness. And right now, the United States and NATO, they're impotent. They can't do anything. They don't dare. And that in itself is a tragic position to put the Ukrainian people in. And I think it's been actually irresponsible because the United States has sort of been, and its allies, including Canada, we've been telling the Ukrainians, yeah, we're with you, we're right behind you, and it's emboldened them to stand up and take an aggressive stance against Russia. But when push has come to shove, where are we? Where is the United States? Are we sending in soldiers to back them up? No. What have we done? We've given them some rifles and maybe some machine guns and boxes of hand grenades, and we've armed the citizens, not just the army in Ukraine, but the citizens. And they've said, and then we said, go get them, boys and girls. Go get those Russians. So now you have housewives and grandfathers and ordinary people fighting the second most powerful military in the world, along with its own military. And people are dying tonight. But if the United States had maintained a position of strength, if NATO had maintained a position of strength, if they had been in that position, they would have been in a better position to negotiate and to push to keep Ukraine a neutral country. Instead, they came at this from a position of weakness, and Russia felt cornered because they were we were weak and aggressive. And Vladimir Putin has called the West's bluff. And that's what we have going on there now. So now we have civilians fighting against the military, and it's kind of a strange war. Now we also have footage. We have footage out of there. Brendan, you have some of that footage queued up of some of the battle.
Yeah.
Today, I don't know if we should show it or not. I guess we can ask the folks if they want to see it. There are pictures of casualties. There's footage of people who were killed. And
there's very graphic details in there.
It's very graphic. I'm of the opinion, it's my view that when it comes to war, we should show people unedited, uncensored, unfiltered video, because people need to see what it really is. In my view, the mainstream media has always covered war like a sporting event. And by doing it that way, it sanitizes it. And then when they stand there or sit behind their anchor desks and in their television studios with their blow-dried hair, they do a lot of cheerleading. They pick a side, and then they cheerlead, and they cover it just like a football game with graphics and charts, and they put the stats up and have little pictures of tanks and planes that they move around on the screen, just like you would if it was a football game. Very much the same thing. Yeah. But they don't usually show you the bodies. So let's ask the folks, what do you want to see tonight? Do you want to see that or not? Do you want to see this unedited footage?
And to add to your point there, Rick, that sanctions are garbage. They haven't worked in World War I, II, the Korean War, North Korea, or anything else. Mm-hmm. Ukraine is very complicated. There isn't any right answers to this. I don't know what's right. I feel in my bones that Canada shouldn't get involved at this point in time. And I think it may be to our detriment, the amount of support that we've given Ukraine already in regards to firepower and weapons and that sort of stuff. That has never played out well in history. There's lots of examples of that in the War of 1812, etc. There's one of the main reasons why the United States declared war on England while they were fighting Napoleon at the time. So I think that there's some possibility for repercussions on us. So far, the West has treated this thing like nothing bad could possibly happen to us.
Yeah, well, a lot of really bad things could happen.
Yes,
to everyone around the world because of this, because of, I think, idiots who are in charge and have been implementing really, really bad foreign policy.
Yes.
Overwhelmingly, people are saying, show the footage. Do you want to cue it up there, Brendan? And
yeah, working on it already.
Okay.
So, also, the statistics there so far appear to be they have issued 10,000 automatic weapons to 10,000 automatic weapons to
civilians.
And
you know when they do that, you know what they're doing? They're giving Vladimir Putin a license to start bombing apartment buildings, hospitals, pretty much, like wherever he thinks civilians are who have been turned into guerrilla fighters, really, right?
Yeah.
When you just arm soldiers and you leave civilians out of it, then the rules of war under the Geneva Convention, those things still apply. But you start arming the civilians, and now you have a different situation on your hands, and I'm really concerned about it. A lot of people have died, and I'm really worried about where this is going.
I simply don't want war. I didn't want war back in Afghanistan and Iraq. I didn't want it then. Yep. I don't want it now. I'm the same person. The same principles that I have now are the same ones that I had with those other conflicts. Although 9/11 and all that other stuff was atrocious. I mean, you could conspire about it all you want. All those things were atrocious. I still don't think what we've been doing has been good, and I believe it's all positives for, what do you call it, the industrial military complex. Like it's all for that. And it's like you said, man, it's the bottom of the barrel people, the middle class and below, that are all going to suffer for this.
Yeah. Okay, let's cue up this footage and let's let it roll. Let's just see what it is. I haven't watched all of this, but I know it is graphic. So just be aware. If you don't want to see it, you've been warned. Audio.
О, дай сейчас сниму, подожди, сниму. Фотографировал. Я уже снял. Видишь, красная полоска.
Oh my God. This looks like a neighborhood here, in Canada. It could imagine just bombs like that going off in your neighborhood.
There's nothing wrong with this footage here. It's just that it comes from like a CCTV camera.
Oh my God.
Я не бачу. Ой, Боже. Ігор!
Дай,
And you know, this whole thing, it just stinks of corruption. You have Putin, who's a dictator over here. You have NATO over here pushing because they want to turn Ukraine into a NATO country so they can have a toehold or get their foot right onto Vladimir Putin's front doorstep, right where he has said, "Don't you dare." When Obama was in power, he sent Biden in there to head up an anti-corruption initiative. Instead, his son ends up with a contract with an oil company, making over $1 million a year. You have some other U.S. politicians who also get their kids in there with cushy contracts and big paychecks. It stinks to high heaven. We don't even know what other NATO countries and politicians have done in Ukraine, but we know that the country has a high level of corruption, has had a high level of corruption. We have the media telling us that we need to go in there and give these people weapons because we need to defend democracy, when the current leader of the country is just an American NATO puppet propped up by the West. So both sides are, have blood on their hands as far as I'm concerned. Putin decided to go in. He initiated the military action, but over here you have what I just described on the other side. And you know who's paying for all of this? Paying the price? The people who are killed today, the people in those neighborhoods, regular people here. You're going to pay for it at the gas pump because these morons and these greedy people who run things have no regard for human life. They have no regard for us. They don't care about us. They don't care about those people who are killed today. But they pay those big-time news anchors to sit there and cheerlead. And I was watching even Fox News today, and they're spouting off about how these Ukrainians fighting are heroes. What are they fighting for? To keep Joe Biden's puppet in office over there and in control with sort of fake elections going on over in Ukraine? And that's what they are. They're fake elections. The whole thing, the whole system over there is corrupt. It's like, which way is that country going to go? Is it going to be pro-West or pro-Russian? Vladimir Putin had a puppet in before that. They got him out and put their own guy, the West put their guy in there. And this is what we've got. We've got dead people. And what are the people really fighting for? Do you want a corrupt Western puppet or do you want a corrupt Russian puppet? The people can't win either way. Any way you slice it, they lose. Any way you slice it, the whole world loses. Not only that, this is so damn dangerous. Putin is right, though. I mean, the West is impotent. And this never really had to happen. If the United States and NATO had had proper foreign policy in place to begin with, if they had approached this from a peace through strength strategy, which is what kept us from going down the road of a thermonuclear conflict in the past.
Yeah.
Peace through strength. We probably wouldn't be in this position. But we've let these radical left-wing whack jobs convince us over here in the left, in the West, to stop producing oil. And I'll tell you something else. These climate change, environmental groups, a lot of them are funded by interests in the Middle East, Russians, and other oil-producing countries. Why? So that we leave our oil in the ground and they get to pump theirs and sell it to us. And that's what we do. Canada alone, as I said, imports about $400 million a year in oil from Russia alone. But what have they said? What did Justin Trudeau impose sanctions on? Russian vodka.
No, that was Doug Ford.
I'm sorry. That was, you're right. That was, that was Ontario. Russian vodka. What a joke. What a joke. Talk about virtue signaling. Everybody has to get in on the act, right? Oh, we're all going to be tough on Putin. We're going to take Russian vodka off the LCBO shelves. And then one of the, I think it was a conservative politician, said that she was going to take pleasure in dumping her Russian vodka down.
No, that was former MP for the Liberal Party, Catherine McKenna.
Right, McKenna.
Yeah.
I saw that today. I just shook my head. What a joke. What a joke.
Do you think Justin Trudeau will take his Ukrainian oil and throw it down the sink?
No, because we need it. We have to have it. That's why we're one of the main reasons we're in such a position, in such a weak position. And you can't negotiate or bargain from a position of weakness.
No, you can't. And that's why we are where we're at.
Not only that, we've been helping Putin fund all of this because by restricting our oil output, it has increased the price of oil on the world market. So now it's at about $100 a barrel. So he gets even more money. And these other NATO countries like Germany, they've been contributing to the problem because they've just been increasing their reliance on Russia for oil and natural gas. So what are they going to do?
I found this thing here, and I think it kind of explains it really very nicely. And that about sums it up.
Did you say you had a clip queued up from a while back with Trump talking about this, Brendan?
Yeah, I sure do.
Maybe we can look at that. This is something that Trump did address, and I believe this was at the United Nations when he was speaking there. Mm-hmm. This is back when he was president.
This is something a NATO meeting.
NATO.
Yeah.
Right. So this is something that he saw coming and warned against. And I remember him talking about this extensively and criticizing Angela Merkel and Germany in particular because of their dependence on Russian oil and gas. And he wanted them... Sorry?
No matter what your thoughts are on Trump, I would like everybody to at least listen to what he's saying here and connect the dots from where we've been to where we are now. Because it's worth listening to, like, no matter what you feel about Trump. Here, one moment. Keep talking there, Rick. I'll have it up in a moment.
So, yeah, to me, it's just... I warn everyone, don't just listen to the mainstream media on this because they're spinning it and they're cheerleading, and some of them want war. Some of these people are warmongers, and they're being paid off to deliver a particular message in a particular way. And as I said, in the end, it's just regular people who pay the price. These other guys, they're like international gangsters. Putin's a gangster over here with his gang, and then over here you've got all these gangsters on the other side. In the West, you've got Biden. I mean, come on. come on, man. Do you really just think back to the last election and Hunter Biden's laptop falling into the hands of a journalist after he left it at a computer repair shop, and it's spelled the whole thing out. But what did the media do? Oh, they had to cover all of that up. They had to cover it all up. It's not just what they tell you, it's what they don't tell you. They chose to ignore it. But as a result of that, that's one of the reasons we're in this mess today. It's because the media refused to hold the Bidens to account for their corruption in Ukraine. And that corruption is one of the main reasons we're facing this BS tonight, right now. And it's pushed the world to the brink of a global disaster, possibly a nuclear war. This thing could easily escalate. Are we ready to let this roll?
Yeah. It already is escalating, Rick, but I'll let this roll here, okay?
Yeah.
And I think also that the military clout of Europe, the economic clout, the political clout, also is helpful dealing with Russia. And we look forward to the meeting we're going to have with President Putin. And I think that leaders are also looking forward to your thoughts about the meeting with President Putin later on.
Well, I have to say, I think it's very sad when Germany makes a massive oil and gas deal with Russia, where you're supposed to be guarding against Russia, and Germany goes out and pays billions and billions of dollars a year to Russia. So we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting all of these countries. And then numerous of the countries go out and make a pipeline deal with Russia, where they're paying billions of dollars into the coffers of Russia. So we're supposed to protect you against Russia, but they're paying billions of dollars to Russia, and I think that's very inappropriate. And the former chancellor of Germany is the head of the pipeline company that's supplying the gas. Ultimately, Germany will have almost 70% of their country.
With Cricket, you can create.
Sorry, I think we've lost Brendan there, actually. So Trump's making that point for us here right now. And it's disturbing.
Russia with natural gas. So you tell me, is that appropriate? I mean, I've been complaining about this from the time I got in. It should have never been allowed to have happened. But Germany is totally controlled by Russia, because they were getting from 60 to 70% of their energy from Russia and a new pipeline. And you tell me if that's appropriate, because I think it's not. And I think it's a very bad thing for NATO, and I don't think it should have happened. And I think we have to talk to Germany about it. On top of that, Germany is just paying a little bit over 1%, whereas the United States in actual numbers is paying 4.2% of a much larger GDP. So I think that's inappropriate also. You know, we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting everybody, and yet we're paying a lot of money to protect. Now, this has been going on for decades. This has been brought up by other presidents, but other presidents never did anything about it, because I don't think they understood it, or they just didn't want to get involved. But I have to bring it up because I think it's very unfair to our country, it's very unfair to our taxpayer. And I think that these countries have to step it up, not over a 10-year period, they have to step it up immediately. Germany is a rich country. They talk about they're going to increase it a tiny bit by 2030. Well, they could increase it immediately tomorrow and have no problem. I don't think it's fair to the United States. So we're going to have to do something, because we're not going to put up with it. We can't put up with it, and it's inappropriate. So we have to talk about the billions and billions of dollars that's being paid to the country that we're supposed to be protecting you against. You know, everybody's talking about it all over the world. They'll say, well, wait a minute, we're supposed to be protecting you from Russia, but why are you paying billions of dollars to Russia for energy? Why are countries in NATO, namely Germany, having a large percentage of their energy needs paid to Russia and taken care of by Russia? Now, if you look at it, Germany is a captive of Russia, because they got rid of their coal plants, they got rid of their nuclear, they're getting so much of the oil and gas from Russia. I think it's something that NATO has to look at. I think it's very inappropriate. You and I agree that it's inappropriate. I don't know what you can do about it now, but it certainly doesn't seem to make sense that they pay billions of dollars to Russia, and now we have to defend them against Russia.
You know, people say this is a complicated issue. It's so complex. When you really break it down, these kinds of things are not usually that complicated. Putin feels threatened. NATO's been too aggressive. They've been really stupid with their energy policies in the United States and in Europe. It's really dumb to make yourself reliant on energy from your enemies or your adversaries. And it's been stupid of the United States and NATO to make an enemy out of Russia and demonize them the way that they have. And tonight, as a result of all of this and this conflict in Ukraine now, this thing could easily escalate and turn into a much bigger conflict. We're not dealing with a small country here. Yes, Ukraine is not Russia, but we're at war with Russia. We're not directly, but indirectly we are.
Oh, big time indirectly.
And there are a number of scenarios that could play out where this could escalate into a bigger conflict that could draw NATO into it.
It could be that it gets voted on and it brings us all into it.
Not only that, if a cyber attack is launched and some of that cyber attack spills over from, if the Russians attack with a cyber attack and it spills over and touches, say, a neighboring NATO country, it could trigger a response where NATO is obligated, the other NATO countries are obligated to respond in kind, and then it can escalate from there.
Well, not to mention, and very shamefully, President Joe Biden of the United States of America did publicly talk about the possibilities of cyber attacks on Russia, which is, if you ask me, is an open act of aggression, which would lead to war. Just even talking about it publicly, like, that's something that should not be said publicly at all. I don't know the way out of this. Again, this is so weird. But let me ask you this, Rick, because this is going to be more your expertise. You probably have vivid memories of when the USSR fell. Do you think that the West could have done more to create a partnership or alliance with Russia that would have made all of this not happen in the first place?
I think that U.S. foreign policy has been misguided for quite some time, and they've chosen to demonize Russia.
Yes.
I'm not saying Vladimir Putin is a good guy.
Nobody is saying that. Nobody is saying that.
He's a dictator.
But do you think that after 1991, the Soviet Union collapses, do you think that the West, Canada included, could have done better to avoid all of this?
Yeah, we should have, and we needed to. And the real danger here now is we're pushing Russia away, and the real threat has been China.
Yeah.
To us. And now, because of all this, because they've been so aggressive, NATO has been so aggressive about trying to make Ukraine a NATO country, and they've triggered this conflict, in my opinion. We've kind of pushed an alliance or more cooperation between Russia and China. And this is the other reason this could escalate into something much bigger in a way that a lot of people don't see coming. If this does escalate, and even just this, we're so focused on this right now, this might embolden China to go over to try to take over Taiwan. And the United States then is spread very thin. And if they're fighting on two fronts, it can get pretty dicey. This is not a good situation, and this could embolden China. Theoretically, it could.
Probably already is.
That's something that China has wanted to do for a long time, and the United States has been committed to protecting Taiwan.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem to me like the United States is that committed to protecting anything anymore. I don't think the United States can afford it. I think the United States military is not nearly as strong as they let on. And I think that we've seen that even in Afghanistan, and especially under Biden. He's an ineffective leader, an ineffective commander-in-chief, and I don't think he's capable, even with his generals, of planning a one-car parade or a one-tank invasion. He can't do it. He's completely incompetent. Look at what they did in Afghanistan. I mean, that was so disastrous.
That
I couldn't help but think that it was done intentionally.
What happened in Afghanistan is basically through the retreat or withdrawal policy that has been standard in armies for over 200 years. They threw it in the garbage. And that's the scariest part about this, is the people who have failed at the retreat and pulling out of Afghanistan are the same people who would love to get involved in the Ukraine, and that's what absolutely terrifies me.
Terrifies me too. You know, all of this, I think, is the result of terrible foreign policy on especially the side of the United States and also these European NATO countries. Incredibly misguided foreign policy, and not just foreign policy, but especially energy policy, and just the entire approach to making sure that your country is strong, safe, and secure. Making your country strong is not just about tanks and fighter jets. It's about a strong economy, making sure that you have your supply chains operating properly, and a robust steel industry, and lots of energy flowing. And Biden, I mean, they're playing the PR game at this point in these news conferences, talking about, well, we're going to tap into the oil reserves to shore things up, and you know that only goes on for so long. What they need to do is open up some pipelines.
Yeah, big time.
And the public needs to wake up to this, because that's the truth. Oil is still the energy source for the world. That makes everything go around. The U.S. dollar is actually tied to the value of oil because we're off the gold standard now, and it's really backed up by oil from the Middle East because of agreements made there. And this, like it or not, that's still where we're at. It's ridiculous. And if this thing escalates, we're in a whole heap of trouble. And Putin, and this is the thing too, we've been hearing all this rhetoric from Biden and from Trudeau, and they're making all these threats,
grandstands,
and just talking about sanctions. It's all it's just a load of BS. None of it has been effective, and none of it will be effective. It's not going to stop any of this fighting. Not now. We're way beyond that.
North Korea has been under sanctions since the 50s, and like, what the hell has changed? Nothing. Zero. Nada.
And you know who suffers the most under sanctions? The people.
Yeah.
You stop importing Russian vodka, and who suffers? Well, the price of vodka here goes up because there's less supply, and the people working in the vodka factory in Siberia, they're out of a job for a while, right? Some of those people lose their jobs, so they suffer. Yeah, I guess it filters back down to the Russian government because there's less money flowing into the country. But really, it comes down to the common person losing their job so that Justin Trudeau or Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, can make themselves look good in the media and make it look to the public like they're doing something here to really send us, teach Vladimir Putin a lesson.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, people die.
I think we need to kind of break down about what you said there about having a strong nation isn't about having strong fighter jets or strong military. All we have to do is trace back 2 years to the beginning of the pandemic. In Canada alone, we had no ability to create antibiotics and all these other things that we're importing from China. This is dangerous. Your country needs to be able to manufacture steel, needs to be able to manufacture weapons, medicine, all the supplies that are associated with medicine, which there's a lot of. There's PPE, there's vaccines, there's antibiotics, and you could just go on and on and on with that. Canada fails at that entirely. We have sent all of our manufacturing elsewhere, and if we ever were to go under conflict, or if China were to start a conflict with excuse me, what the hell is the name of it again? With Taiwan, if they were to start a conflict with Taiwan, then there goes all of our manufacturing. Bye-bye. That's it.
Yeah.
All done.
Well, this is a conflict that we can not afford.
No.
Our economy has been devastated because of the way our governments have approached the whole COVID situation. The Canadian dollar, the US dollar, they're both weak. Our governments have just been printing money like it's going out of style. They've adopted this modern monetary theory approach to managing the money supply, which really, when it comes right down to it, they've just given themselves permission to print as much money as they want with no limit because they think that's the solution. That's modern monetary theory. Just keep printing money. Just keep printing. Don't stop. And then when it looks like things are going to collapse, just print more. But that's just a tax on people. That just fuels inflation. And eventually the dollar collapses.
It all looks like it's by design. Like, how could you not feel like this is not by design? And I mean, I'm not going to be able to sit here and back that up for everybody. But in my heart and with what I'm looking at, things don't add up, man. It doesn't add up.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're kind of in a World War I situation here where we have all these alliances backing each other up. And it's like, we know what happens when that happens.
I don't think there's any question at this point, Brendan. A lot of this, I think, has been intentional. Trudeau's magic lamp says the World Economic Forum wants us all dead or subservient. And I'm to the point where I believe that that's probably partly or maybe even completely true. And we're seeing it play out. And even during this pandemic, we've seen this assault on small business.
Yeah.
There was just a story that emerged showing that the government relief programs in Canada that were designed and is supposed to be going to small businesses, the bulk of it went to big corporations.
Yeah.
Not to small business. They've been hammering small businesses. They don't like small business. Trudeau doesn't like small business. He said some years ago that he just thought small business was, he viewed it as a way for small business owners to evade taxes. And that's very close to the truth, I think. That's what he thinks. Not close, that is what he thinks.
Somebody added small businesses and churches, and I can't imagine how much churches have been impacted by this. There's so many churches that probably relied on weekly donations.
Hey, Rick Myers, what do you mean they're fighting to stay alive, you tool? What the hell does that mean? They're fighting to stay alive.
What have we said that indicated otherwise?
Yeah, I think they're fighting because Biden and Trudeau sent them some guns, and they're putting civilians in harm's way. That's what I think. I think they've said, "Hey, get out there and fight for our puppet, the puppet that we put into power. All you moms and dads and take your grandkids too, and have them take a machine gun out into the streets and stand up to them Ruskies." That's what I think, Rick. Fighting to stay alive. I think that these policies have put regular, everyday people in harm's way over there.
And I have a tweet of that.
Yeah, there we go. I learned to use a Kalashnikov and prepare to bear arms. It sounds surreal, as just a few days ago it would never come to my mind. Our women will protect our soil the same way as our men. Go Ukraine! Yeah, and you know what's the source for that, Brendan? I saw that promoted on Where Else, the other 98%. You know what? That is a horrifying image. This is more government propaganda. It's designed to say, yeah, folks, get out there and defend the country on your own. No training.
Limited training.
What happened to all the Canadians who are concerned about gun control? Yeah, let's arm all the people in Ukraine. Let's just give everybody guns and let them run out and take on the Russians in the streets. That's the plan, right?
I don't know. That I did see that. It is eye-opening, but to be competent with a firearm, it takes hours of training. So anybody can pull a trigger off. I agree with that, and that's fine. But to be competent with a firearm, because if you're in a pickle and your gun jams, you're screwed, and you got to be able to fix it and fix it fast. And that takes hours of training. It's not something that you just pick up and do. And so this is putting people in harm's way in more than one way. Like I wish I knew a better answer for them. I really do. But it's like Florin told us last night, if these people are patriots and they feel like they must do that, then, I mean, if that's what they want to do, like, that's fine. I don't know how else to put it. I don't feel it is right. We've been building their military over there since 2017. The Canadian military has. I can't say for sure how much NATO or other militaries have been involved with that. But this is not going to go good, and it will lead to civilian retaliation.
Yeah, and I'm not defending Vladimir Putin. I'm saying this whole thing is disaster, a tragedy all the way around. It just is
a tragedy all the way around.
And this lady here, if this is even, like, I don't even really know I don't know who this person is, but civilians, regular people, they're the ones paying the ultimate price. And it's disgusting. This war, I'm just so sad to see all of this happening. And I just don't think, like so many other things, I don't think this had to happen. Now, Carla was down at the protest in Ottawa today. She spent better part of a month in Ottawa. Brendan was also at a protest today. If you guys want to support our journalism, we'd greatly appreciate it. We're at freedomreporters.com is where you can donate. You can also click the hot link in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions. A lot of people have donated, and it really helps us because we are trying to expand our coverage, expand our news operation here, and we have a lot of things planned for the weeks and months ahead. And we will be providing ongoing coverage of the convoys, the protests here in Canada, and we're following the People's Convoy in the U.S. and we'll be keeping you up to date on that as well, and just other important news stories, especially the ones that pertain to the fight for freedom, because the world has changed a lot, especially in the last couple of years. And the mainstream media, which I used to work for, CTV, for over 25 years, I was there. And I'm back because I see the outright lies and propaganda that we have coming from those media outlets now. All of them now captured by government, state-funded, government-financed. And that is why, in my opinion, we're getting such a slanted narrative from the media all the time now, especially and including these reports on these freedom protests and now this thing out of Ukraine, this conflict. The war has always been like that. There's always been misinformation and propaganda with every conflict, every major war, every minor war, even before you go to war. There's always the propaganda aspect to it. It's
a part of the game. It's a part of the game. That they're going to use whatever tactics. They're going to use mental tactics, physical tactics. They're not going to stick. They're not a one-show pony, I guess you could say. They're going to throw it all. This person here, I think that they're, accordingly to what I've been able to find, it looks like they worked for Amazon in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did see it popping up in the other 98% feed, and then they put a lot of money behind that, and then they push that out, especially on Facebook, and they're a left-wing, far left-wing, communist propaganda machine. That's what they are, and they've picked up on this particular post. I did see it there today, among others, and what they're doing right now is they're cheerleading. They're promoting this war. Make no mistake, the lines are kind of clearly drawn again here politically. A little blurrier on this, because who wants to be the one that says, I don't know, the United States isn't really in Canada. They don't really have the moral high ground on this one, but that's the truth. We don't. We don't have moral high ground on this.
No, not at all.
Not to say Vladimir Putin does either. I think what we have here is just two wrongs making things worse. I don't think there is a right side.
Here's what I could tell people. This is what I don't want out of this situation. I don't want the Canadian people and the American people to be so propagandized by this scenario that it's going to jump our young men and women to have to go over there and start fighting the Russians, because once that happens, there's going to be many of our sons and daughters that will die.
That's right.
And that's what I don't want out of this. I don't want a whole nation driven into a frenzy. Like, whenever you have the media pushing for people to be war hawks, I'm always suspicious. Always suspicious.
Brendan, that's why we're here. That's why other independent journalists are out there. Mainstream media is not doing it, but we need to hold our politicians accountable. We need to hold their feet to the fire. And because that's really all we can do from where we are as Canadians or U.S. citizens, is we have to hold the politicians accountable and say, hey, wait a minute. I don't think it's wise to send our young men and women over there to fight and die for this country that you've turned into let's face it, Ukraine has been largely a sort of a international money laundering operation, I think, for some of the world's elite. That's what they turned that country into. You think that's why they're that's the whole thing that was going on over there with the Bidens. And they suppressed that during the election. but it's all there. All the information is out there. If you can't see it, it's just corruption that they've, it's unethical. Maybe they've even twisted laws to make it legal. But you know what? When you're at that level, a lot of those laws just don't apply to you.
That's a huge thing, right? So United States is historically a country that dismantles leadership in foreign countries and then places in their pawn, whatever pawn they see fit that they know will do their bidding for them. Of course, Vladimir Putin doesn't trust us. Like, we have a long history of doing that. It's very clear that's what happened in the Ukraine. I've been doing my research on Ukraine, and it is a developing country, ranking 74th in the Human Development Index, and it suffers from a high poverty rate as well as severe corruption. Like, these are well-known facts. Eastern Europe is not some cozy little playground. It has a dark side to it, and it does have a very big dark side to it.
Yeah, and talking about propaganda, there was this other video showing, I'm not entirely sure what to make of this, but I want to show it to people because if nothing else, it shows how people can be manipulated just through the way images look, okay? So you can see here's this video on the right. Okay, let's play this one first.
Audio up.
Yeah. So this was posted, and this was what the finished product is supposed to look like.
Well, we'll see.
So that was supposed to look like people running from a Russian airstrike. And then this is from a different angle and a different perspective.
Go, roll cameras. One, take one. Here we go, and action! Okay,
so there's that. There's that.
I don't know, man.
I don't know either.
Here's what I think it could be. They make movies all the time where stuff like that happens. It could just be from some film set that was shot in Eastern Europe at some point. Like, the buildings definitely look Eastern European, I could say that much, if you look at the architecture in the background. But as far as is that real? I don't know.
I don't know. Like, that's the thing, right? That shows how much how difficult it is to really know what truth is, because the first shot is being presented in some places as though it's a Russian airstrike. The second shot shows that it was complete fabrication and was some sort of a dramatization. But the third thing is, we don't even really know what it is for sure because we just don't know.
Oh.
But maybe somebody out there does. Do we have some comments coming in explaining what it is?
A grill has no name.
I don't see the what is she saying, Brendan? Just read it to me.
Kaleidoscope Man posted in 2013. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. So some people have been reposting it, saying it's a Russian airstrike, but then somebody posted this saying no, it was this film footage. So you see how easy it is to manipulate people?
Yeah, I was skeptical about it from the second I watched it.
Yeah, when I watched it too, I was like, well, wait a minute, what is this? Is this even in Ukraine? Like, and then I see this other shot, and I'm like, well, what is that? And when was that shot? Where was it shot? Who shot it? What's the context around this? But people, all it takes is a little caption on the top, and people turn it into whatever they want to turn it into, and the next thing you know, you get people all jacked up and convinced of one thing or another, right? So question everything. Question everything. That's the takeaway, I think, from that.
Yeah, I was.
Question it all. Because I'm certainly not saying it's anything in particular other than that.
No, it was worthy of looking at, I think, because it is going around the internet, and look at it this way. Eastern Europe is a very cheap place to go and film movies. It has always been a cheap place to go and film movies for a long time. Ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union, they've been Russian camera crews over there to film movies very cheaply.
But that other footage we showed you, that was security camera footage, cell phone footage, compilation from, the conflict over there. That stuff's real and disturbing.
Yes.
That was real. I'm certain of that. And it just shows how tragic all of this is. And again, I just think the mainstream media always, you go back to any conflict, even World War II, the propaganda films produced by both sides. You look at the Vietnam War, right? The way that television had an impact on that. Vietnam, actually, if you think about Vietnam was the first war that was televised. And that taught the U.S. military a lesson. Don't let that kind of footage be shown on television, because though the images that were coming back from Vietnam were such that fueled the anti-war movement in the United States. It helped fuel all of that. And that was because they had reporters over there that were with U.S. troops, but they were sending back a lot of this footage of combat, and the people back home didn't like it. And they didn't manage that information war the way that they manage it now, and they certainly didn't manage it the way they did before that, because television in World War II, and certainly in World War I, it just wasn't like that. You didn't have television in World War I. You didn't, people listened to the radio to get reports. There wasn't that visual reference, right? But now it's all sanitized again.
They did film a significant amount of casualties and violence in World War II, but a lot of it was kept in vaults and stuff like that.
Yeah, they never showed that stuff. You would go to the movie theater and they'd have, films that would run before the feature, propaganda films that, that was the kind of stuff that people were shown in World War II, and that's how they kept spirits up.
My favorite being Daffy the Commando, where he jumps in a Messerschmitt plane.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Oh, look, a whole mess of Messerschmitts." Ha 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 ha. Kind of funny. I don't know. That's a good one. Check it out. But it highlights exactly what we're talking about, the propaganda that they'll use in war.
And so now they still embed reporters. They did during the Gulf War. I remember all of that going on during the Gulf War, and they still do that now. They send reporters over. And
again, Sean Penn is over there, I guess you said. God knows what he's cooking up.
Yeah, I mean, there's another example. Okay, there's Sean Penn's over there right now shooting some sort of a documentary, but I guarantee you that it's going to be some sort of a propaganda film by the time he's done. Absolutely, it'll be a propaganda film. Hollywood actor, has always been a political activist, and whatever he produces, it's going to come out with a particular slant, a particular point of view. It'll be absolute propaganda. paid for by whoever is funding it. So I'll watch it, and I encourage people to watch everything. Go ahead, watch the propaganda. I don't want anything censored, and I think people should expose themselves to all points of view, and then make your own decisions. Maybe Sean Penn has some valid points. Maybe he'll have some valid things to say. I don't know, but it's going to come to you from a particular point of view.
I'm going to go based off of what his actions have been for the past several years. And I'm going to say no, it's going to suck really hard. It's not going to be anything good. Just a prediction. However, I will probably watch it because this is war, man.
Well, that's exactly right. And this is an information war. Over there, it largely is an information war.
Yes. I've been widely criticized for watching our state broadcaster in Canada, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. People go, oh, why would you ever watch that? I can't listen to it. It makes me sick to my stomach. It's like, well, you kind of have to know what they're saying. Which has been a long-standing belief of mine. Like,
Mitchell Surratt says Sean Penn is a leftist Hollywood nut. And
see?
He's definitely a leftist. He definitely
Prince Charles is demonic. Oh, see? That's exactly what I'm talking about. James Bond shot in Eastern Europe. It's cheap to do it.
Yep. Yeah. Boss says, certain revolutionary spirit, Odessa, Trotsky. Mm-hmm. Trotskyism. What other comments do we have coming in here tonight? A lot. Film irrelevant. Bombs are falling right now. Well, that's true. Terry Knowles says film irrelevant. Bombs are falling. Right? Yeah. And it's tragic.
Yes, it is a very beautiful place. I have been to Amsterdam in 2007.
Love for all Americans, the real children of ancient Israel. Big D says, what's going on all over? It's hard to make a call, skim through the lies. It is hard to know what is truth and what isn't. It's hard to know what to think anymore, isn't it? Especially today, because you have special effects. They can even create videos with dead people who, they resurrect. You could make Joe Biden any president could be dead and they could just keep him alive electronically.
Yeah. I think after Joe Biden has done this, he'll have an excellent role to play in those CSI shows as a corpse. He can make millions every year.
Carla was on earlier. She had some video with us that she shared from a protest she went down to in Sarnia today. We did run some of that, and she might be joining us later in the broadcast live. Like Afghanistan. Yeah, an absolute disaster, JC. An absolute disaster what happened in Afghanistan. They ended up arming the enemy. I can't believe they left all that military equipment behind.
Yeah, I can't believe it either. Somebody tried to argue with me about it, and they were like, oh, that's only because you watch Fox News. It's like, no. It's not just because I watch Fox News.
Putin seen in Moscow Starbucks cursing at denied bank card. That made me, you know what? It actually did make me laugh when I heard that Trudeau was going to sanction Putin directly. I thought, what are you going to do? How are you going to sanction or impose financial penalties? How is Trudeau going to impose a financial penalty on Vladimir Putin directly that's going to make any difference to him? The guy runs a country. Even if he has a company and you want to sanction his company, you can just make another company. He can do whatever he wants over there. He can make up documents, a false identity. He can do whatever he wants. You're not going to target him specifically and cut off his funds very easily. Not Canada. Anything you do.
What's it going to be like? Oh, we're going to sanction him against maple syrup. He won't be able to buy our maple syrup anymore.
Yeah, just the whole thing. Trudeau is such a joke. Such a joke. Canada, you do realize you have to help as you join NATO. That's right.
That's right.
If it spills over into any NATO country, then if you attack one, they consider it to attack all, and they have to respond. And Canada would be part of that. So then we'd end up sending troops. And what a disaster that would be.
Big time.
They couldn't even handle Afghanistan properly. Biden couldn't even retreat properly. What a disaster. And there's no way I would want my son or daughter going into battle under his command, leading the NATO assault on the number 2 military power in the world. Nuclear power.
You know what's very ironic about now and then, like before? Like in the Iraq war, it was all Republican and conservatives who were like, we must go to war. And now it's like all the liberals are like, we must go to war. It's like, what is happening here? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Sean Penn's either. Pen as thick as 2 planks, says Alex Jones. Yeah. And that's what, make no mistake, that is what Sean Penn is over there for. He's there. He's getting paid to go make some sort of a propaganda flick, right? Sean Penn is a globalist tool, according to Antoine Johnson. Sean Penn got pegged by Madonna.
Oh.
And that is why he's uniquely qualified to go to Ukraine. What KGB phase are we in? I don't know. I don't know. I'm no KGB expert, that's for sure. So I don't really know what you mean by that. Trump giving speech at CPAC right now?
Ooh, let's check it out.
Yes, there were still small freedom protests all across Canada today. We showed you Toronto. We showed you some from Sarnia earlier in the broadcast. And yeah, maybe what I'll do is try and find some current footage. Out of another one of our feeds. Let's see here. We were in Toronto. I do know as well, because I saw footage, that there are still trucks in and around the Ottawa area. See what. Okay. Okay, we do have a clip here from one of the organizers from the Ottawa situation. So let me just cue that up for you. This will surprise people, I think, to see this guy. And let's hear what he has to say.
Hi, everybody. Looks who's here.
Hi.
I have my lawyer, so I can actually come on here, right?
He was in jail, but he's
keep
out.
him out of trouble,
Yeah.
but just, let's tell everyone you're okay.
I'm good. We're all good. Family time the last while, rest time. It's been nice to be home. And I got to be a little bit quiet, right? But not totally quiet.
Yeah, you could tell everybody how you're doing.
I'm doing good.
Thanks for all of the
Support.
support.
It's been awesome. We'll be back someday when we can, guys, but just quiet for now. So
We're all good.
we're good. We're safe. We're home at the farm. Got the animals. We're good.
Swift Current, here we are.
She's in Swift Current. That's awesome. I get to do one more TikTok with Eva. So. You guys be safe. We'll talk to you.
Okay, so there's that too.
I
What do
found
you make of that?
Where the hell is BJ Ditcher, and why the hell is BJ Dichter and Tamara? Why? Where is he, and why is Tamara Litch in jail? And why did he get bail?
Well, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Just questions. Thinking.
Yeah,
out
we
loud.
don't want to jump to any conclusions or anything like
I'm-
that.
I'm not jumping to anything. I'm just stating the facts. Stating the facts. I brought up Trump speaking on C-SPAN. If you want to watch it.
Yeah, let's pull it up, see what he's got to say.
Let's do it.
I want to know. Here he is. Oh, it's
Things that we
CPAC.
had never done before.
Oh, yeah.
And we should not be buying Russian energy, but rather allow the people of our country to start producing like they did just 1 year ago. That's all we have to do. This will drive prices down, drive inflation down. You want to get rid of inflation or bring it way down? Reduce the cost of energy. That's the single biggest factor having to do with inflation. And what has happened in Ukraine is a catastrophic disaster, but it isn't really that interesting that so many Democrat politicians in Washington, they seem to be rushing to microphones to declare that Ukraine's borders are sacred. They want to say their borders are sacred. And we feel for Ukraine in so many ways, but Ukraine's sovereignty must be defended at all costs, they say, even while they're destroying our own borders and surrendering our own sovereignty. We have a border that's a catastrophe. We have people coming into our country that we don't want. They will not be good for our country. You will be paying a price for many, many years to come. We have terrorists that came out of Afghanistan with the plane. Remember they said, oh, the planes are coming in. The people that rushed the planes, those are very energetic people. Those are people that you will be paying a big, big price for in years to come. The most important duty of every elected lawmaker is to protect and defend America, and that begins with protecting and defending America's borders. Under Joe Biden, we're losing our country no different than if we had lost it in a war. No different. No different. Millions of people are pouring in, descending on our communities, camping in our towns, depleting our resources, flouting our laws, and bringing crime, drugs, and death to the streets of our cities and communities. And they're not only coming from Central and South America, they're coming from all over the world, over 160 countries. In many cases, from jails that are being emptied into our country as though we are a dumping ground. We're not the United States. We're considered a dumping ground for criminals. The Biden administration has spent months obsessing over how to stop an invasion of a foreign country thousands of miles away. I believe Americans deserve a president who will stop the invasion of our country also. And we had it stopped 1 year ago. We had it stopped. We had it stopped 1 year ago. You can't defend Western civilization if you would not be able to defend your own civilization. And that means we need borders that work, elections that are fair and free and not rigged, and crime that must be immediately stopped in our cities. And we must immediately stop the influx of illegal aliens. Has to stop immediately. Our country is being poisoned from within. The Biden administration cares more about helping citizens of a distant foreign nation than it does about our own citizens, because our country is a mess. Our country is a dangerous place, and it's getting worse and worse every day. And when you hear 3 million people this year, it's not 3 million. It's probably 3 to 4 times that number. It's probably 10 million, 11 million, or 12 million, but the real truth is they have no idea what it is. Yet if the radical Democrats truly want to fight for democracy abroad, if they want to look abroad and fight for what they want to fight for, which I don't think they do, they should start with the democracy that is under threat right next door, a place called Canada. Well, by the way, we got rid of NAFTA, and we have the USMCA, that's Mexico and Canada, one of the greatest deals we ever made. And I know it's great because they want to renegotiate the deal. That was a horrible deal. NAFTA was the worst trade deal ever made, and now we have probably the best trade deal ever made, but they want to renegotiate, and they probably will do it. This administration, oh, sure, that's not putting America first. We put America first. It's a great deal. They should leave it. They've been ripping us off for 30 years. It's time for us to do well. The tyranny we have witnessed in Canada in recent weeks should shock and dismay people all over the world. In an advanced Western democracy, the peaceful movement of patriotic truckers, workers, and families protesting for their most basic rights and liberties has been violently put down. Their assets and life savings have been frozen. They have been slandered as Nazis, racists, and terrorists. These are the names they've been called. They've been arrested and charged with phony crimes. They've been falsely accused of loyalty to foreign powers. I watched them. I saw those maple leafs all over the flags and the love for their country. Plenty of Americans were there, too, and they love our country. They're being hunted down like enemies of their own government and treated worse than drug dealers and murderers or rapists. A line has been crossed. You're either with the peaceful truckers or you are with the left-wing fascists. And that's what's been happening. And it's been a strong line. We stand with the truckers, and we stand with the Canadian people in their noble quest to reclaim their freedom.
Wow.
Standing ovation
Wow.
for Canada. Standing ovation for Canada.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Linda. Good job. Right here in our own nation, it's also far past time to declare independence from every last COVID mandate. It's time. It's time. And you know, as early as when it first happened, I let the governors make that decision. And we had some governors that did a great job, and we had some governors that didn't do a very good job. But I can tell you that the Republican governors did quite well, thank you, quite well. And a big, big difference also on crime. You look at where the crime is, and you don't see the word Republican very much, if at all. With one voice, Americans must insist that the emergency is over, and we will submit to this left-wing tyranny no longer. We will not do it any longer. They're causing so much damage to people and to our children. The people who are masking our children may plan to lift those mandates right before the election, thinking they'll get some votes. But we will never forget what they did to our children. We will hold them accountable at the ballot box this November. As everyone here understands, the COVID mandates are just one part of a much larger crisis. The radical left is trying to replace American democracy with woke tyranny. They want to do the same thing to America that Trudeau has been doing to Canada, and much, much worse. Our mission in 2022 and in 2024 is to take on this radical and power-hungry ruling class and to deliver them an electoral defeat so resounding that they are exiled into political oblivion, never, ever to return again.
Wow. I didn't expect to hear him come out like that and talk to that level about the Canadian truck convoys and the Canadian truckers.
It's a standard Trump maneuver.
Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and crazy Nancy Pelosi are the sinister faces of this corrupt and lawless political establishment. They enrich their families in Ukraine, China, Russia, while they shutter your small businesses right here at home. They send young Americans to fight and die for the borders of distant foreign nations while they throw our borders open to an illegal foreign invasion, which is what is happening. They set violent criminals loose without charges while prosecuting their political opponents for fabricated crimes. They legalize mass robberies and cheer for BLM and Antifa rioters, ransacking our cities while they hold nonviolent protesters without trial, destroy their lives. They lift sanctions on Iran while they sanction and destroy our own citizens. They try to silence voices like Joe Rogan for alleged misinformation while they perpetuate the most flagrant hoaxes and monstrous lies like the Russia hoax. How was that? For 3 years, we had to put up with the Russia hoax. It was a total hoax. They indoctrinate your children to hate their parents while calling you a hateful racist. They stick the FBI on mothers at school board meetings while they teach 4-year-olds to pick their own genders. Would you like to change your gender? And they say it's absolutely fine for a boy or man to participate in women's sports. I don't think so. They use big tech to censor you. They use the deep state to spy on you. They use the intelligence agencies to frame you. They use the media to slander you. They use the legal system to persecute you. It is a persecution. They rig elections to disenfranchise you and destroy you and ruin your lives. I've seen the anger and the hatred and the horror at the 2020 election. All the while they claim as they are the ones defending democracy. They say they are the ones that are going to defend your democracy and your justice. It's a lot of bullshit, that's what it is.
I think those are the words I was looking for earlier, Brendan.
I'll buy you a thesaurus for your birthday.
When we win, we will defeat this corrupt political establishment. We will save our republic, and we will restore constitutional government of, by, and for the people. The Washington swamp knows that we are coming to break their grip on power forever. That is why they are so desperate to stop us. They will go to any lengths. And that is why the corrupt Democrat prosecutors, an unconstitutional, unselect committee on January 6th, the unselect committee. Can you imagine a committee made of these thugs? They hate us all. Is there ever been a committee like this? The unselect committee. I think that was my term. I think I came up with it first. I'm very proud of many of our terms. But they're continuing their evil and demented persecution of me, my family, my staff, my supporters, and you. It's the same witch hunt that's been going on since day one, since actually the day that I came down the escalator with our great future First Lady. Now we know that Crooked Hillary not only spied on my campaign, she spied on the White House. Do you remember when I said years ago, I think they spied on my campaign, and everybody said on the other side, how dare he say that? How dare he? Well, it turned out to be true, and I want to thank John Durham for figuring that out. And I believe that's just a foundation on which a lot of very bad things are going to be learned about what took place. Everything they're doing to me is about preserving their power and control over the American people. If I renounce my beliefs, if I agreed to stay silent, if I stayed at home, if I said I'm not going to run, the persecution would stop immediately. They'd go on to the next victim. Who's next? But they'll never, ever do what they did to me. And nobody else, I don't believe, would be able to take it if they did. I have had that a lot. I've had great people come up to me and tell me, sir, may I please ask you a question? Yes, what would you like to know? Sir, how did you take it? How did you take it? How did you take what they did to you? And in many ways, I can't answer that question. But there's never been anything like this ever done to an American president before. But I can't do any of those things because I love this country. We love this country, and we're going to bring this country back, and it's going to be bigger and better and stronger than ever before. But remember, they're coming after me because I'm standing up for you, and that is it. I'm standing up for you. In 2022, we're taking on this wretched and corrupt political establishment like never before, and we've learned a lot over the last 4 years. We've learned how corrupt they are. Nobody can even believe it. If you wrote a book or a novel, and it was all just printed out like this, with Crooked Hillary, with the Mueller report, which was okay, we like it. Did it find no collusion? But with all of the things that you've seen, all of the horrible things that you've seen, the corruption, the spying, it was spying. It's probably worse than spying. It's treason. It's everything you could have. If anybody ever wrote a novel, the great James Patterson, if he ever wrote a novel like this, it wouldn't sell because people would say, no, it's not believable. This could never happen. And it's worse. They're finding out things now that nobody even thought were possible. We're going to end Nancy Pelosi's political career once and for all. And then we're going to kick the Biden crime family out of the White House in 2024 or sooner. But even our Supreme Court justices, and it's sad to say this, are afraid to do what has to be done to save our country. They're trying so desperately to be politically correct and to be loved by all. These are the justices of the United States Supreme Court. They are terrified of the radical left. They are afraid of packing the court so that they are only one of 15, 19, or even 25 justices. And at any cost, they don't want to be impeached. Please don't impeach me. I don't want to be impeached. I'm a Supreme Court judge. Please don't impeach me. I'm a justice of the Supreme Court. Don't impeach me, please, for being with a woman that I never heard of before. Women that he didn't know, women that a particular Justice Kavanaugh had no idea who they were. But you know what? He's lived through hell, and he's afraid. I believe he's afraid. I believe he's afraid to do the right thing. I really do. You know the expression? They play the ref. They play the ref. They said not so long ago, we're going to impeach him for something, and then they found out. The woman got up. She said, well, he never did anything wrong. They said, we don't care. We're going to impeach him anyway. These are vicious people. These are vicious people, and we can't let this go on. They have to gain strength. They have to gain new courage, and they have to stand up for freedom and stand up for what is right. They can no longer be afraid of the radical left, our Supreme Court, and our judges generally. The work of making America great again is only just beginning. The Republicans have a big and bold agenda that they're going to put into action under a Republican Congress, and we have a chance of setting records. But I don't want to say that. I don't want to say we could win 65 seats, because if we win 64, they'll say it was a terrible night for Trump. Terrible. He had a horrible night. He only won 64. He said he wanted 65. We will bring Joe Biden's inflation-causing socialist spending spree to a screeching halt. We will immediately begin a full audit of the $6 trillion of radical Democrats. The money's been flushed down the drain, and they're trying to get more. They want to get up to a number that nobody can believe, and it looks like maybe people will not allow that to happen because they don't want our country to be destroyed. They should have never, ever in the Senate given that 2-month stay. You had them on the ropes. You were going to win. And then Mitch McConnell gave them a 2-month stay. I call it the 2 months in which they can get their act together. And then they voted for the I call it the uninfrastructure bill, because there was very little infrastructure, right? There was 9% infrastructure. Most of it's like throwing the money right out the window. And they voted. We had some Republicans headed by Mitch McConnell. He's so bad for our country. The American people deserve to know, where did all the money go? In addition, we must take immediate action to fight the Biden violent crime wave that is devastating our citizens in Democrat-run cities. You look at what's going on in Chicago. So sad. In Afghanistan, I had a meeting with Abdul. You know who Abdul is? He's the leader of the Taliban. I said, Abdul, you better not kill our soldiers anymore. I was much tougher than that. I want to be nice. Much tougher. Even Jim Jordan would have been concerned if he heard that. But I said, Abdul, you're killing our soldiers. You better fucking not kill our soldiers anymore. Because if you do, you will be hit like no country has ever been hit. You will be hit harder than anybody has ever been hit. And he said, Mr. President, but why? He actually called me Your Excellency. I don't know. Do you think he calls Biden Your Excellency? How about you? He goes, but why Your Excellency, Mr. President? Do you send me a picture of my house? And I said, I'd rather not answer that question. See, I was being very nice. See? I'm being diplomatic. And you know, we didn't have one soldier killed in 18 months in Afghanistan. We had them, this is what we wanted, the Taliban. And we could have pulled out with strength and dignity. They were absolutely, and then you look at what's happening in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and these Democrat-run cities, and you have 7 people killed in one weekend and 80 shot. It's terrible. Republicans should pass legislation making clear that when local left-wing district attorneys and attorney generals refuse to prosecute dangerous criminals, the DAs and attorney generals can be charged with violations of the civil rights law. I mean, look at Los Angeles, what's going on. Look at Philadelphia, where people that kill violent criminals are being immediately allowed out of jail with no bond. As we defend America's safety, we must also defend American values. As president, I was proud to issue the world's first ban on critical race theory in September of 2020. It was over. We ended it. And then Biden, with the help of Mitch McConnell, came into office. Remember, he signed 17 executive orders, and one of them unended it. Not good. I also created the 1776 Commission. You people would love the 1776 Commission. So that young Americans would learn to love this country as much as we in this room do. On his first day in office, Biden abolished the 1776 Commission and then proceeded to impose woke left-wing racism on our military. With a Republican Congress, we will once and for all ban critical race theory from our schools. We will ban it from our military. We will ban it from every institution that accepts a single penny from the federal government. America's history will be taught fully and truthfully to America's beautiful children. In addition, we must defend parents' rights. Something new. Something new. That's right. Something new that came up, parents' rights. Who ever thought of parents' rights? Parents' rights. We love our parents, of course. Now we have to defend parents' rights against these lunatics and maniacs. America's moms and dads should get a veto over anyone teaching far-left gender ideologies to their children without parental consent. And any parent who objects to the radical indoctrination in their children's classroom should be able to take their share of taxpayer dollars and spend it at the public, private, charter, or religious school of their choice. Another top priority to save American democracy must be to break up the big tech giants and restore free speech in America. And we'll be fighting that very hard by opening Truth Social. The days of big tech censoring the voices of the American people are numbered. The left is also trying to take away the rights and dignity of OAN, One America News, on DirecTV and AT&T. And it's a great voice, and these are great people, and they're patriots, and they want to take away their voice. They want it to be shut down, and it does great. Who listens to OAN? I do. I do. They want to take away their voice. Can't let it happen. They've got millions of viewers, and those viewers and that network should be allowed to go forward. Well, we're at it. A Republican Congress should launch a select committee as opposed to an unselect committee to get to the bottom of big tech's 2020 election interference. Let's find out who made the decision to censor. Who made that decision to censor the Joe and Hunter Biden corruption bombshell, which the pollsters said amounted to about 15 points, the largest illegal campaign contribution in American history. And let's do a full forensic audit of the $417 million given by Mark Zuckerberg, who used to come to the White House and kiss my ass. That they spent to take over local election offices in key Democrat counties, and I believe you're going to be hearing a lot of it. You know, if you're a person that wants to make a contribution, you're allowed to give less than $6,000. Otherwise, they put you in jail. He gave $417 million. What the hell is going on? What are we doing? $6,000 and you go to jail? $417 million spread all over the place. It's something that obviously is going to have to be looked at. It is so horrible what's happening to our country. We need a full accounting of all of the illegitimate turnout efforts, illegal drop boxes, and ballot harvesting that's taken place. You know, we had drop boxes, 97% for Joe Biden because he campaigned so hard from his basement. 3% for Trump. 3%. They gave me 3. At least they gave me something, because I think they had a couple where he actually got 100%. Thousands of votes. He got 4,000. I got nothing. No, it's that was such a horrible thing. We need fair elections. You need those borders. You need those elections. The world is already waiting to see the explosive information out of Georgia, where True the Vote, incredible people, has uncovered a massive illegal ballot harvesting scheme with over 2,000 ballot stuffers, or as they call them, mules. They call them mules. These are ballot stuffers. These are people. They call them mules. Ballots in Georgia and other swing states were trafficked and sold on an unprecedented scale. And the brutality, and it was just incredible what took place. And we have it on tape. It's all on tape, and it's coming out over the next 3 weeks. It's all on tape. They've got them at the machine, standing here. Here they are. Here they are. You know why? Because that's the way they got paid. They had to take a picture of them. And what a job they've done. What a job they've done. And you know the saddest part? The hardest thing to do isn't to have caught them. It's to get those people to write anything about them. Because without the fake news, you don't have a scandal.
That's right.
The rhinos
That's
and
right.
certain weak Republican politicians want to ignore election integrity also. But we cannot ignore it, and we have to fix it. Make no mistake, they will try to do it again in 22 and 24, and we cannot let them do that. And the way you do it is to come to a very powerful conclusion as to what happened in 2020. To stand down, to stop talking about it, to stop making Americans aware of the cheating and corruption that went on. That's really saying it's okay. You can do it again. We can't let that happen. In addition to securing our elections, here are just some of the other things we must do with Republicans back in charge. We must pass critical reforms, making every executive branch employee fireable by the president. The deep state must and will be brought to heel. We will stop the radical Democrats from packing the Supreme Court with far-left justices. Although the way the Supreme Court is behaving, perhaps the Republicans should pack the Supreme Court. They are behaving not the way we think is appropriate for our country. As a lot of people have suggested that, but I don't think we'll do it. And we will defend the Constitution, the right to life, and the right to keep and bear arms. We will end sanctuary cities. We will end catch and release. And we will end the visa lottery scam. And we will finish the wall very quickly, a matter of weeks. We will charge China trillions of dollars for unleashing the virus upon the world. We will place tariffs on other countries. We will do the tariffing thing. We have no choice. You know, in China, for years, they ripped off our country. They paid hundreds of billions of dollars during our time in office. They never paid 10 cents, never 10 cents, between tariffs and taxes, hundreds of billions of dollars. And, you know, we made a trade deal, and it was an incredible deal for our farmers and our manufacturers. That's why our farmers are doing so well. Because China, now I understand that China, once I'm out, China's not going to adhere to the deal. They wouldn't do that with me, but they're not going to adhere. But the farmers did fantastically well. But we made incredible deals with China. We saved our steel industry because they were dumping steel all over our country. Our steel industry was going down the tubes. I've had so many people in the steel industry thank me for the job we did. We put massive tariffs on steel that they were dumping in our country. But we took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. Nobody else took in 10 cents over many, many years. And I'm very proud of it. And China respected us. And then, of course, when COVID or the China virus came in, we had to deal a lot differently. But we're very proud of the job we did. We did something that I don't think anybody else could have done. And I want to thank certain governors did a very good job. Certain Republican governors did a very good job. And I can't think of any Democrat governor that did a good job. They were all in lockstep. Let's lock up your cities. Let's lock up your towns. Let's lock up your state. Then let's harm your children. Let's take their social lives away at a very young age. We will place tariffs on other countries to restore the glory of American manufacturing, and we will ensure our future is made right here. We're going to manufacture, and we started it big time, right here in the USA. And these are just a few of the steps that we have to take to save the nation that we love. The rest of them you know, the rest of them we've discussed today. If we fail in our mission, we already know what the fate of America will be. The radical left is trying to extinguish our very identity as Americans so that when they try to take our freedom, we do not even think to resist. They don't resist. They got to resist. They got to fight. They got to fight. We have no choice. We got to fight like hell. We can't let them destroy our country. But our opponents have made a very big mistake. They have done the one thing you must never do if you seek to harm America. They have grossly underestimated the strength and brilliance and pride of the American people. They're not going to stand for it. They're not going to take it. The crackdown, censorship, and cancel culture are not an expression of confidence. They are an expression of cowardice and of fear, and they are afraid. They reveal not the dominance of the radical left, but their desperation and their despair. They are losing, we are winning. They know it. They know it. And that's why they're going so far. That's why they're doing some of the crazy things that they're doing. They're acting as though they were lunatics, maniacs, and the people get it, and we have to stop it, and we have to stop it now. My fellow Americans, this nation does not belong to the radicals, and it does not belong to the corrupt establishment in Washington that I've gotten to know very well. This nation belongs to you, belongs to you. It was patriots like you that built this country, and it's patriots like you that are going to save our country. So to all of those who think that they can coerce and subjugate the citizens of this land, hear these words from me tonight. The people of America will not surrender our borders. We will not surrender our culture. We will not surrender our faith. We will not surrender our values. We will not surrender our history. We will not surrender our liberty. And above all, we will not surrender our children to the small band of bullies and extremists who want to tell everyone else what to do. We are done with the fascists and communists and socialists, and we are done with their distorted visions for America. It's time to start talking about greatness for our country again. We want our country to be great again. We want our country to be respected again. We are a laughingstock all over the world today. 1 year ago, we were respected like never before. We are a laughingstock. In summation and in closing, as your president, I instituted the largest tax cut in American history by far, and our economy thrived like never before. As your president, I eliminated more burdensome regulations than any other president in history by far. As your president, I proudly protected our Constitution and the First and Second Amendment. As your president, I secured our southern border, upheld the laws of this land, and stopped the influx of illegal immigrants into America, very dangerous illegal immigrants. I instituted the Remain in Mexico policy. We don't want you here. You have to remain in Mexico. And Mexico agreed with us. Someday I'll tell you that story. Built over 500 miles of border wall and ended the insanity of catch and release. As your president, I made America energy independent for the first time in 72 years. When I left office, America was a net exporter of energy for the first time in our country's history. As your president, I negotiated free and fair trade deals with Canada, Mexico, Japan, all over Europe, and China. We had the worst trade deals ever, and we turned them into some of the greatest trade deals ever made. I'm the only president in history to stand up to China and their one-sided and unfair trade practices, and I taxed them and I tariffed them beyond any levels that anybody thought was possible. And you know what? President Xi liked me and respected me, and I liked and respected him. We got along great. We got along great. Until COVID came, and then it was a whole different ballgame. But we had a very good relationship. As your president, I kept my promise and chose Supreme Court justices on the list I gave to the country before the 2016 election. I gave a list of great, brilliant, conservative justices. As your president, I insisted NATO nations start paying their fair share, and they did. Hundreds of billions of dollars started floating in. Hundreds of billions of dollars. And Secretary General Stoltenberg was my biggest fan. He said, I've never believed it, because President Obama would go to NATO, make a speech, talk about the weather, the sun, how lovely everyone looks and live. And others would too, including President Bush, how wonderful everything was. And I went and I said, I'm sorry, you're all delinquent. You have to pay up. And they said, well, does that mean you won't protect us if we don't pay? I said, that's what it means. And they said, get out the checkbook, and the money flowed in. Billions and billions of dollars flowed in. Oh, these are stories that the fake news doesn't want to talk about. I also warned NATO about the danger of Russia. And look at the consequences. On foreign policy, the world rightly had a healthy fear that as president, I would stand strong for American priorities. You remember, though, when so many people in the Democrat Party and during the debates said he's going to get us into the Third World War with Trump. I'm the one that didn't have any wars. I'm the one that got us out of wars. Look at Iraq. Look at Syria. I was the one that brought us way down in Afghanistan. I brought you down to 2,000 soldiers. The easy part was just getting out. I brought it down from 20,000 soldiers to 2,000 soldiers. The easy part was for Biden to just get them out, let the soldiers stay, the remaining soldiers, and take care of everything. It's called Soldiers Out Last. I went to a child who was 5 years old. You've heard me say this. I said, let me ask you a question. I gave him the whole story. Would you take the soldiers out first, or would you take them out last? I'd take them out last. He was 5, and he understood. They understood any hostile actions would be met with swift and severe consequence. The world is always safer when America has a strong president. America has to be strong, and it needs strong leadership. And you see what happens when you have bad, weak, or incompetent leadership. It's a travesty like nobody could believe could happen in such a short period of time. The world is always in danger with a weak American president. This coming midterm election is more critical than ever before. I'm asking all of you to fight and work hard to elect candidates that believe in the principles and policies that we hold so dear. This is a tipping point for the country, and the stakes could not be higher. Losing is not an option. We must win in 2022. We must win in 2024. We all know what happens when you get a rigged election, like in 2020. Will never happen again. We all know laws were not followed. Ballot harvesting was rampant. We all know state constitutions were also ignored all over our country. And you're not allowed to do that. The only ones that can make the changes are the state legislatures, and they didn't make the changes. We must agree this can never, ever happen again in this country. Every state must adopt election integrity measures, signature verification. Illegal immigrants cannot be allowed to vote like they are currently allowed in New York City. You can walk in and you can vote in New York City. Oh, my beautiful New York. I love New York. My beautiful New York. What's happened? Republicans need to watch the vote counting up close from the start to the finish. We can't allow thugs to throw our people out. It's what happened. Mail-in ballots need to be in secure rooms with cameras so there can be no tampering with ballots. Voter rolls must be updated, and they must be accurate, not changed after the election takes place. We must seek a goal of voter ID. This is a goal we have to seek. This is what we should have. Voter ID, same-day voting, like we've always done. No mail-in ballots except for our military and people who are truly sick. And you know what would be really wonderful, too? What would be really wonderful? It's asking a lot. A thing called, very simply, paper ballots. I have a young son, Barron, young son, and he can make his computer sing. I turn it off and I lock it. 2 minutes later, hi, Dad, how you doing? I said, what are you doing? Yeah, I know how to get it open, Dad. These bad things happen with the vote. Very, very bad things happen. Wonderful thing if we could ever go. By the way, Canada goes to paper ballots. You know that, right? Canada, paper ballots. America is the greatest country on earth, and we must insist on integrity in the process so we are confident of the results. Because what we have now is you have 80% of the party thinking the vote was a horrible vote. And I believe that to be the case. I know certainly, I feel certain that it was. You can't have that. You can't have a great democracy with a thing like that happening. You must get your state legislatures to act now before November. They have to move. They have to act with the help of everyone here today and with the commitment of hardworking, freedom-loving patriots all across our country. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We want to be proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you.
You want to pull that music down, Brendan? Just drop it right down. Thank you.
How do I move to America?
Wow. He's a great speaker.
Yeah, he is. And he's funny, too.
Wow. And
powerful.
I was blown away when he started to talk about the Canadian truckers. I missed that. That took me by surprise. And he spent some time on that. And wow, he took the words right out of my mouth.
And
so he was for them. I missed
oh,
it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like amazing work those Canadian truckers have done. And the crowd blew up and just went into a fury of cheers and claps. It was absolutely amazing. Well, I mean, I don't want to come off as a fully like a Trump cheerleader or anything. There's so much I like about the guy, though. I like how he's just very pointed and he just tells it like it is. Some people think, oh, gee, well, it's just so mean. But I mean, you have to be mean if you're in that position.
He's not mean.
I don't think he comes off mean either.
Mean?
Some
people
think
with authority.
Some people comes off mean. That's why the left hates him, because they're like, oh, well, you're coming off kind of mean.
Mean.
He's the right kind of right for me.
Yeah.
He's strong. He's authoritative. He's confident. And he's proud of the country. He wants to restore it.
Like, come to Canada, be our prime minister.
Oh, man. That was, I miss him.
I needed that tonight. I knew.
Yeah.
I was late and I'm sorry. But I had to see you guys and I needed to be in on even just the part of that speech that I was in on. That is amazing.
I mean, there are some things that he didn't deliver on that I think were pretty disappointing to people, things that disappointed me. He didn't deal with the big tech issue and censorship when he had the opportunity. I think that was his biggest failing as president. But on these other points tonight, he's like right on the money. And to hear him talk about those Canadian truckers that way, inspirational. And it just puts new wind in the sails, doesn't it? To hear him talk like that?
Big time. And he is a president of the United States, and for him to give that backing like that is immensely powerful. And that's always been Trump's tactic. He's always been big for jumping into the blue collar and the workers, and he knows what they want. And even if he can't deliver it, he'll say, like, this is what we need to work on. And it's very powerful.
That's going to drive the people on the left in Canada loopy. Absolutely nuts. To know that he said that tonight. Wow.
I'm going to put on Matt's Make America Great Again hat.
Pretty cool.
He's
Very,
American.
very cool.
He loves Trump.
You know, my favorite thing about Donald Trump is how he gives all of his opponents like cutesy little nicknames like Sleepy Joe, Crooked Hillary. What was the one he gave Nancy Pelosi earlier?
I'm
Did
sorry,
you
what
catch
was
that?
He's going to end Nancy Pelosi's political career?
No, he gave her like a cutesy little nickname there, and it was really funny. I should have wrote it down.
I don't remember.
I missed it.
He said a lot of things tonight, though. He touched on a lot of important things. I loved the way that he reminded everyone that his country, the United States, and this applies to Canada as well, it doesn't belong, your country doesn't belong to the elite and the ruling class. It belongs to you.
I loved that.
Yes.
I think that's where I put my hand over my heart.
Crazy Nancy.
Crazy Nancy, yeah.
But yeah, like it's so true. And that's what Justin Trudeau needs to learn. The country doesn't belong to him, and he needs to learn to listen to the people. But I hope that he's gone soon. It's because he's not going to learn that lesson. He's too arrogant and egotistical and too spoiled and too immature.
His people. I learned a lot about his people today. They're hateful. You know how he's spewed with hate?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are too. We saw a lot of that today. On the internet, we saw a lot of that today, yeah.
So tell me about that, because you were down at that protest. We'll come back to Trump in just a moment, but I want to hear about that because Carla was down at a freedom demonstration, anti-medical mandate demonstration in Sarnia, Ontario today. And she, down there on the front lines again, taking it on the chin today, right?
What's that? Hey,
Yeah.
I didn't see any of that.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so, I was really lucky that our co-host here, Brendan Kennedy, was there as well. Came to support me and make sure I was doing everything right. I think he wanted to make sure that the speech that I did got recorded. Anyway, it was good. We had a decent turnout. We were faced with some counter protesters. Nothing much at the actual the actual gathering that was in front of City Hall. It was when they did their convoy. I was not on the convoy. I didn't cover it. But what the people who rode the convoy told me is that every time the convoy came to a stop sign, because they did this in the city, not on the highway, out of respect for the police, just trying to be respectful. Every time they came to a stop sign, 2 or 3 of them would come and run out and wouldn't let them go, would block them as they were trying to go. And they were doing this at lights. But eventually the police were watching the convoy, and they did put their lights on and tell the protesters, get out of the way and let them drive. So I thought that was kind of a good one. And then it's been very hostile, at least in Sarnia-Lambton. I'm not sure what's happening throughout Canada for those who are for freedom. Well, we have the right and the left. I mean, let's just tell it like it is, right? We've got right thinking and left thinking, and right is for freedom and left is for JT. And everyone on the left.
Communism, fascism.
Communism, fascism, tyranny.
Lockdowns.
Violence, right?
Yes, yep.
Aggression, anger, fear, you name it. It's there, right?
Yes.
So I really woke up today to something. I mean, I obviously knew all of those things, and I knew that there were people against us, and because I did see counter protesters while in Ottawa. But the new counter protest is about the Ukraine war, the war between Russia and the Ukraine. They believe that because we are fighting for freedom and discussing freedom, all of these Canadians that were protesting, they think they're automatically, they don't care about the Ukraine, that they are racist because they aren't focusing on Ukraine. Instead, they're focusing on freedoms that these leftists don't believe that any Canadians have lost.
I think
So-
I have an example that I could show you, and that's this meme I just saw.
It's just on fire in Canada. The internet is on fire with it. Basically, so if you aren't putting every ounce of your energy into talking about and praying for the Ukraine and hating on Russia, then you are anti-Canadian, you are a racist, you are for communism, and you are a tyrannist too. You are promoting tyranny.
So to clarify,
can I just to remind people though, Brendan, before I'll just, if you want to support what Carla's doing, what we're doing, please go to freedomreporters.com to donate. There's also a hot link in the YouTube description and on Facebook. We are independent. We do not take government money. We are expanding our news operation, and there are costs associated with providing this coverage, providing these broadcasts, and anything you can do would be greatly appreciated. We are on the front lines of the information war. And as President Trump just said, the country belongs to you, not to the elite and the ruling class, and we are here to hold them accountable. That's why I'm back. I used to work for CTV for 25 years, and I thought I was done with all this, but because of all the propaganda and all of the, the true misinformation that's coming out of the legacy media, I knew I had to come back and do something with these guys, with Brendan, Carla, and the others to try to get some truth back out there and a different perspective, not just the other side of the story, but all the uncensored, unfiltered information we can, get it out to you. That's what we're here doing in the field, in the studio, going through everything on the internet, doing some investigative stuff ourselves. If we have time tonight, I'll show you why we are now on the radar with your political opponents, the opponents to Canada, the people who hate on the country, hate our history, truly hate democracy, and want to keep control of the country away from you. The country does belong to you, and that's what we're here for. Help us. Go to freedomreporters.com. And I'm sorry, Brendan, I'll throw it back over to you to make your point.
Okay, we just saw on the video there that there's 2 Ukraine signs that were across the street here. Is that the counter protest? Those 2 people? I did see those people myself. There you see that again in the frame in the far back by just past those. There they are there, the blue and yellow.
Was that them?
Okay, that's just 2 of them that just came in. And to be honest, those 2 stood just across the street. Yeah. They were there maybe 15 minutes, just long enough for the Sarnia Observer to interview them. And but there were more. There were others that were different ones that were at the stop signs. So
okay,
and it's like yelling obscenities at them,
And you're not objecting to them being there.
Heck no.
I didn't see that
no
at
one
all.
objected. No. And, I think some people did speak to them very nicely, just conversation. I was pretty upfront, even in my live before I knew they were coming. I said, that, they're welcome to be here. They need to be, it was on this live. I spoke out basically saying, you know what? And that's great because they do, it does need to have some attention. And they're standing for what they believe in, and they have every right to do so.
Right.
As long as they do it peacefully and respectfully.
Sure.
In the same manner you're seeing here with these Canadians, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that there is a war going on between the Ukraine and Russia, but that doesn't take away from the fact of what's happening in our country. So they feel that this group is selfish because they're not worried about that.
But that's the way it is on the left all the time. It's like, what's the next thing that we're supposed to latch on to and support, right? It's just, this is our next thing.
but like they've taken it to a whole other level, like a whole other level, that we do not have the right to protest because this war is happening, and how dare these people protest? It is wrong. It's a slap in the face. The way that the comments that they've been putting out on the internet are basically saying that, you know, it's these people, this group of Canadians' fault because they're from Sarnia, Lambton. The people are making the comments. It's this group of Canadians' fault that that children are dying in Russia because their focus is there. I don't know.
Wow.
I was just really woken up to that, and it really grieved my spirit. I mean, I knew the veracity of what goes on in the liberal mind, but I was still blown away. I think it was a big slap today to see that. It was a wake up.
Yeah, and Tenacious Bulge just points out that it's not the Ukraine, it's just Ukraine. That's
correct.
Yeah,
Ukraine.
Ukraine. It's just Ukraine. People always say the Ukraine, but that's like saying
I do it all the time.
The
but
Canada.
The Canada.
It's just Ukraine.
Yep, yes. Over in Ukraine. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you have, Brendan? What did you see?
Oh, I've relinquished that all at the beginning. All I saw was those two people standing across the street. I seen one individual try and block a traffic light area with their vehicle so that the convoy participants behind them were not able to drive through. But that person just rolled their window down and were screaming obscenities at people. That person was basically told that they were well loved, and they took off and didn't see them again, and that was about it. And those two individuals, I did take note here that you said that those people stood there just long enough to be interviewed by the local newspaper, and I took the liberty of pulling it up, and it says here, another convoy protesting COVID-19 mandates made its way through Sarnia Saturday. But with most of them being dropped soon, some officials and residents feel the protesters should turn their attention to bigger issues, such as Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's like, what?
Exactly. That was my point.
Did you want me to bring that meme up? Would that help you, Brendan?
Oh, it was just touching on Carla's point. Yeah, bring it up.
Yeah.
See, this is what the left is doing. Traffic westbound out of Kiev yesterday. That's what a freedom convoy looks like in the face of tyranny and oppression. Note a distinct lack of bouncy castles.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw that too earlier today.
See, that's what the left is doing. They're trying to diminish our rights being trampled by saying, well, look at this. This is worse. There's an infinite amount of worse things in our society that you could point to and say, well, this is worse. It doesn't diminish the issue, though. And what the newspaper, the article I just read there from the local paper, I just read the first paragraph out of it, it doesn't diminish it. There was 2 people with Ukraine signs at this protest, and there were several hundred people with Canada flags there for the protest against mandates. And the mandates aren't gone. They are there. They can pull them out whenever they want to. And believe you me, I suspect they're going to do it come April.
Their plan already, they've already discussed it. There was something with Theresa Tam saying, you know, that they're going to basically keep them in the back pocket until they're needed again. And then she went on to discuss future variants of concern.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
this is so far from over. And it's not about health.
No,
it's about government crackdown, control, implementation of digital ID, digital tracking, controlling your bank accounts, social credit scores. It's about all of that. If people can't see that by now, they are just simply completely brainwashed and or blind.
Mark my words, at the end of the Easter break here in Ontario, Canada, the kids will not be going back to school. Mark my words.
You better put your tinfoil hat on, and then I'll believe you.
You know, this post too, it's so stupid. They actually kind of make the point that the protest in Ottawa was completely peaceful.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, this is serious, this one here, because this is a war, and all the people actually have to leave. That's a freedom convoy because they have to run away from the explosions. Note the distinct lack of bouncy castles. Yeah, there were bouncy castles there because nothing was being blown up. There was no violence. It was a completely peaceful protest. Which is completely and we showed that to you in your footage, in other raw footage, unedited, uncensored, for nearly a month coming out of Ottawa and other locations. No violence. Even in Coots, where they supposedly found a cache of weapons that wasn't really even connected to the protest itself. Even there, as soon as they supposedly found it, that's when they packed it in, because they were like, we don't want anything to do with that. So we're going to end it right now. That is ultimately what brought that demonstration at the border in Alberta to an end. And in Coots, that brought that to an end. That just illustrates, and this thing here just reinforces, they're kind of making the point.
Exactly.
That one there was not a real freedom convoy. That was just a carnival with a bunch of bouncy castles for kids. That's what it was.
I feel like the left often do make their own point.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, the hate, telling people to put their flags down. You have no right to fly that flag while things are happening in Ukraine. Excuse me?
They hate the Canadian flag. They hate Canada.
They hate it.
They do. To them, the Canadian flag is racist. That's what we need people to understand in this country and in the United States as well. Every time they take a little bit more. But the truth of the matter is, it's not just a Confederate flag. It's not just a statue of John A. Macdonald. It's not just these symbols from Canadian history, okay? And it's the country. They hate Canada. They hate the United States. They hate Western culture. They hate capitalism. They hate freedom. They hate it all. And as far as they're concerned, it needs to be torn down, burned down to the ground so it can be replaced. That Canadian flag to them is no different than a Confederate flag or a Nazi flag. You trust me on this, because Canada is a systemically racist country and it needs to be torn down. That's why when you see these counter protests, you might see a Canadian flag or two, but not very often. They don't really carry Canadian flags. They're not proud of the country. They're ashamed of the country. Yeah, we have some dark things in our past, in our history. A lot of mistakes were made along the way, but over time, those things have been addressed, and we keep trying to make things better. That's what every country in the West has tried to do. That's what we've done with our Western free capitalistic democracy. We built the most tolerant, kindest, most welcoming society on the face of the earth. And these people want to tear it all down. They hate the Canadian flag. They hate Canada.
They really do. It was shameful. I mean, I think what these people, what the left needs to realize, or the people who are against freedom need to realize, is just, if their support is so much for Ukraine and their concern is so much for Ukraine, then you would think they would want to fly Canadian flags knowing that our troops are going to Ukraine. I just cannot wrap my brain around it. Sometimes I feel like I really am living in the Matrix.
They are told what to think. They are collectivists. And whatever the issue is, or whatever it is, they all fall into line. It doesn't matter. It's like there can be no wrong think. Everyone conforms. There's no individuality. Everybody is supposed to just, that's what it is. That's the way everything works over there. That's one of the things that makes them so strong and honestly so scary, because they're always in lockstep, and you are up against an army, a thought army, a physical army, and they will get, and it's total aggression, and that there is no room in that collectivist atmosphere for any other point of view. When you've got this group mob mentality, because that's what collectivism is, you need to cancel your opponents. Get out there, stop the traffic. And it's totally justified in their opinion, right?
Yeah.
For them to block the traffic, that's okay for them. But not for your opponent, because they don't think the right things.
And the obscenities that they were yelling, shooting the middle finger, yelling like I mean, they were using fairly inflammatory and aggressive language. And I don't understand it. I just don't.
And you know what? Looking at, I read you guys that single paragraph out of the local
the whole
newspaper.
article.
No, I just read you guys a single paragraph in the whole article, and that is them trying to. That's the narrative now. Ukraine is now the narrative. They say, don't look at these problems over here. Those problems are not problems anymore. You got to look at this problem over here. Don't look at that. You guys got to look at this.
And God help anyone who doesn't agree with the leftist view of what's going on between Ukraine and Russia.
You know what? On this right here, they can pound salt. Like, I mean, take a hike, because they are warmongers. They want to support this. If they want to support this conflict, they want to. Oh, we got to defend Ukraine at all costs. We need to defend democracy. What democracy? It's a puppet that is put in place honestly by the West. It's a puppet, and to be more accurate, it's really a puppet put in place by the left-wing political forces from the left. It's people like Biden, who has been in there engaging in corruption. The whole Biden family and other Democrats have been over there using Ukraine as a money laundering nation. They funnel it's an international money laundering scheme. That's a big part of what Ukraine has been about. That's why Hunter Biden was over there, and a bunch of these other Democrat politicians, and they got cushy, corrupt deals for their kids. Oh, Hunter Biden gets $1 million a year from an oil company,
which he had no experience in consulting in energy corporations or energy, unless if you want to count cocaine as energy.
Yeah, because in exchange, the Obama administration propped up Zelensky, put him in there, propped him up, kept him in place, and that was Obama's puppet. Now he took over from a Putin puppet, so you've got one puppet exchanged for somebody else's puppet, but the whole country has been corrupt, and that's just because the country is. It's either going to be controlled by Russia or it's going to be controlled by the West. And what really needed to happen was for it to become more neutral and independent. And if you're going to have democracy, have real democracy, not this fake democracy that they had there. They're not defending democracy by going into that country. And what do they want to do? These people on the left, they want to send our sons and our daughters over there so that they can die for a fake democracy?
No,
prop up some.
That's the hilarious part, because
they don't want to send troops in. They just want us to.
Yes, they do. They do.
I know that the government does. I'm
and
just
the left.
thinking.
And the left want to too, because they go.
Oh yeah.
They look. We've shared the atrocities that are going on in Ukraine, and we're not here to diminish those things. Like, God bless those people and all the crap that they're going through. War is hell, and I don't wish it upon anybody. Because we're in a situation here where Neil Young, who wrote an entire album against George W. Bush and all of his warmongering that he did in the 2000s, is he hasn't said a single bloody word about this. But meanwhile, Joe Rogan says something against the COVID narrative, and everybody blows up about it. It's garbage, absolute garbage.
Don't listen to the mainstream media on this.
Yeah.
You got to think for yourself. Get as much information as you can. We're here standing against this tonight. I'm like, no. We can't. We should not be just following these neocons and these left-wing fascists and socialists and communists who want to lead us into. They'll lead us off the edge of a cliff into oblivion, into nuclear oblivion. They are rattling the sabers. They want. Their policies have led to this. They're stupid. Don't pump oil, leaving us energy dependent, leaving Europe energy dependent on Russia. Canada's still importing over $400 million a year in Russian oil. I don't see Trudeau sanctioning the Russian oil.
No, just the vodka.
Yeah, we need to pump our oil. We need to open the pipelines. We need to get off this. We need to restore our strength economically and militarily so that we can negotiate from a position of strength. But it's too late now. Yep. It's too damn late. And these idiots marching around on the street with their signs who can't think for themselves because they're just part of a stupid mob and they're being told what to think, and they only get their information from certain media sources because everything else is they're told and convinced that it's just a conspiracy theory. Well, no.
It's easy to take the atrocities that we have showed people on this very show tonight and tell them, look, you should feel bad for these people and we should go in there and do something about it. It's too easy to do that.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And how are they doing it? We pointed this out too. What has the Biden administration done? What has NATO done? They're not even going in because they're doing something even worse. They've made promises to Zelensky and even to the people of Ukraine. They've said, we're going to take care of you. We'll back you up. You stand strong against them Ruskies. Where you stand strong against those guys. We're going to back you up. They're not going in. They're not doing anything. All they're doing is sending in some guns and some hand grenades. And they're saying, okay, you guys stand up against them. So now the government of Ukraine is arming civilians. So now you have civilians put in harm's way over there with no proper training, and you expect these people to become guerrillas and engage in guerrilla warfare against the number 2 military power in the world. It's sick. It's sick.
It's awful.
What the hell are we doing? And Trudeau stands there like a puppet himself. He is.
He is a puppet.
It's just like whatever Biden says, I will say it too. And then I would do sanctions too. We're doing sanctions. We're doing vodka, and we're going to sanction Putin himself so that when he goes to the bank, at Toronto Dominion Bank, he won't be able to use his bank card. Like, what a moron. Again, another example of why Justin Trudeau is the worst prime minister in history. No business being in that
He's
job.
going to destroy Canada in every way possible.
And in a way he has, in so much. Look, people. They made this mess, and they're going to ask you to send your kids over there. They're going to ask you to send your kids over there and pay for it with their lives.
I hope it doesn't come to that. I don't know that they will send soldiers. I don't know that they can, because even these idiots can see that if we do that, it will probably take us into a nuclear war. Because while Putin and Trudeau are making these empty threats, when Putin is making his threat and saying, I might use nukes, and he has, you can be pretty sure that he means it, because he's outgunned against all these other countries and he knows it. Okay? But he's got a lot of nukes. When he's threatening to use it, you better sit up and listen. People better take that seriously. The West is impotent on this, And that's the real tragedy of it, because they've emboldened, because they triggered this. Putin's just as much to blame because he went in. They've made false promises and given the people of Ukraine a false sense of security. So they're now fighting a war that, honestly, they have no chance of winning. And a lot of people are dying right now because of this BS. People are dying tonight. And what do we have over here? Mainstream media cheerleading. Yes, the Ukrainians are standing up. They're patriots and they're heroes. And that's what we need to see. And they're cheerleading these people on. And what they're doing is they're being sent into battle to die. This is a war they cannot win. They just don't have enough firepower. And the West won't provide enough. And the money that Justin Trudeau sent over there, some of it will find its way into weapons. And I bet you a lot of it will be funneled into some sort of corruption and taken by people for things that it wasn't intended for, because that's what goes on over in Ukraine all the time.
Just like COVID relief funds that go into major corporations as opposed to small businesses.
And once it leaves here, how do we know where it's spent or what it's spent on, and what weapons are they buying and where are they buying them from?
And who is accountable for it?
The Liberals have a long history of spending money that can't be accounted for. Remember the $1 billion boondoggle that brought Harper to power? There was $1 billion they couldn't account for. And the list goes on and on and on. The point is, this whole thing over there just stinks of corruption, from Hunter Biden's laptop from hell to the oil deals for the politicians' kids, where they get millions of dollars every year, to arms deals. And who knows what all, I mean, we're not even well versed enough to know what these politicians from other countries have been doing over in Ukraine. But it's pretty clear that the whole setup over there has not been a democracy.
Right.
At all. So what the hell are we defending? Corruption.
Or what are the globalists
elite
protecting?
Yeah.
That whole thing, man.
Well, I'm doing a lot of fishing because I'm going to be very honest. I don't have a lot of knowledge on it, so I'm going along with, I'm looking just like all the viewers. I too am looking for the correct information, the truth.
That's something else, though. These people on the left, they're used to that. They don't even mind that.
No, they don't.
They don't care.
They like it better that way, if you don't know.
They sort of expect these politicians to be crooked. They expect them to just sort of take the money.
They admire them for it.
They do. They absolutely do. They think that they're entitled, and they don't have a problem with it. They really do not. So to us, it's disgusting. To them, it's kind of like normal. It's normal. Well, they're
just
running
how
things.
government works.
That's how it works. They're rich and they're in charge. They get to make the rules. So what's the big deal? As long as I get my $1,000 a month on welfare or whatever, this government program or free snow tires like the Liberals want to give you in Ontario, I'm okay with it. Whatever. There's nothing you can do anyway. They're just going to do it because they're in charge. No, the country belongs to you. The country belongs to Canadians. The country belongs to U.S. citizens. The politicians work for you. And we here are going to call them out on it. And we're holding these guys to account. And we're going to hold their feet to the fire. That's what we're doing. Just even by having this discussion and having the bravery to stand up to it. Because right now, doing this show, man, I'm telling you, I have a big target on my back, and I know you guys do too. And some really weird stuff's been happening to me, and we've been targeted by these people on the left in ways that we're going to go into in another episode. But we are fighting an information war, and they want to cancel us. They're trying to take us down, but they're not going to. The more they try, the stronger we get. That being said, again, we need your help to keep doing what we're doing. Go to freedomreporters.com. We're going to send more reporters out into the field. We're going to do more of this kind of work. We're going to continue to do these broadcasts. There are costs associated with it. You can help us at freedomreporters.com or click the link to the donation page on the YouTube channel and on the Facebook platforms as well. Greatly appreciate those of you who have supported us already. We're not done. We're just getting started. We're going to expand this. This all started because we saw the need, because of all the lies and misinformation surrounding the truckers convoy. That's why we started this again, why I resurrected this news channel, and why Brendan and Carla are here, and why we're bringing other people on board too, independent journalists. Because you can't rely on my old employer, CTV. You can't rely on CBC, Global, City TV. You can't rely on any of them. They're all propaganda machines, every single one of them. And
Also,
it's terrible.
Let's not forget, if you cannot support us at freedomreporters.com, please feel free to give this video a like and hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. We are streaming pretty much every night, all the nights. So thank you so much for watching, and we do love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you can help us just by doing what Brendan said, too. If you can't afford to donate, just subscribing helps us out a lot as well. It helps us grow the channel. So much going on.
It's crazy.
That Trump speech was awesome tonight.
Oh,
I was glad to see that.
I needed that. I'm so grateful that I jumped on. Yes. My spirit is lifted.
I was so... I don't know. When he started talking about the Canadian truckers,
I'm going to have to watch it when I get off here. I need to hear it.
Yeah, it is really good. I'll send you the link, eh?
Please do. Mm-hmm.
That was like putting more diesel fuel in the tank, you know?
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Bigger than a jerry can?
Bigger
like
than
a jerry can. Like a tanker truckload full. Yep.
Would it have filled the hot tub?
More.
Yeah, more.
We're good to go for a week.
I love it. I love it.
Yep. And it was good to see that video of Chris Barber, the one of the organizers from the truckers protest in Ottawa. Came online, had a little video, gave people a little address tonight.
Yes.
And and there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to tonight. We're just kind of recapping things here, but some of this stuff is not dated. We're gonna, in our next broadcast, explain again why we've suddenly kind of popped up on some radar, and it's because of a story that we told you about involving the how can I describe it? A guy who has been targeted by the government for being a terrorist, and by talking about his story, and his story, I think, is one of the reasons that Justin Trudeau ultimately decided to revoke the Emergencies Act or the War Measures Act. And now the story we've done has been taken and kind of turned into something else. And we'll share that with you in our next broadcast. So that's part of what we're doing here. So with that, we've been on the air now almost 3.5 hours tonight. So it's probably time to wrap up for the evening. Is there anything else you guys want to add or think that I might be missing?
Question everything. Question me. Question Carla. Question Rick Rocker. Question the mainstream media. Question big tech. Always ask questions. Don't stop asking questions. There's a whole world out there, and there's nothing more powerful than knowledge. That's the best weapon and your best defense against this crazy, crazy world.
Yes.
My name is Brendan Kennedy. I'm Brendan Kennedy with Maverick News. Thanks for watching.
I'm just going to add, I agree with Brendan. You know, just dig for the truth. It's the only way you're going to find it is to question everything.
Yep. I agree.
I'm Carla Olson. And I'm going to remind you to be kind and be Canadian.
And I'm Rick Walker, and I agree with what these guys said. I approve of their message. Get your information from all sources. Find out as much as you can, and question everything we say as well. That's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely what people need to do. Question everything. Educate yourself. Think for yourself. That's our message tonight. And with that, thank you, everyone. Again, go to freedomreporters.com to support us with donations if you can. Greatly appreciated. And we'll be back 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same bat time, same bat station. Catch you all on the flip side.